is tomorrow.
Tomorrow, as of this recording.
November 19th?
November 19th, the year of our Lord, is the 38th birthday of Adam Douglas Driver.
Oh.
I don't know how you're planning to celebrate, but 38 years
38
of Adam Driver on this earth.
Nice.
And last year I got you stickers. I didn't get you anything this year. I'm sorry, but I think,
okay.
but I am going to get you a gift. We can open
Okay.
we can open our gifts on air like we did.
Yeah.
That one time. For Christmas, I mean, or Hanukkah, or the holidays. You know.
The holidays, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Wow. I'll be able to remember
years.
that because my boyfriend's birthday is October 19th.
Oh, so a month, just a month apart.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And like 8 years apart, but or like 6 years. 6. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
6 years and a month.
So it's not like they were born in the same hospital or anything like that. Anyway, so I just wanted to wish you a happy Adam Driver's birthday.
Happy Adam Driver's birthday.
ADB. Right?
ADBD.
Yes. Yeah. Of course, when this comes out, it'll have already passed. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Twitter has in store for us tomorrow, because they always really pull out all the stops. So
lots of pictures of him shirtless looking at Ray.
Yes, I'm sure. Just like in this movie that we're going to talk about today. I could not be more excited to be talking about The Last Jedi with you. I don't. That's folks, listeners. That is what we are talking about.
Yes.
Today,
and Nicole's wearing
yes,
the sweater to prove it. A Star Wars blue sweater with white Star Wars letters and red something on the side.
Yeah,
red.
Like I don't know. It looks like Han Solo's pants. Maybe, I don't know. It looks a bit like the pattern on Han Solo's pants. But yeah, I'm wearing a very old school sweater today. Although it's not old school. I think I got it at fucking Target or some shit. But it was really, really hard for me to narrow down.
I know you have a lot of Star Wars paraphernalia.
Which Star Wars shirt exactly?
I have no Star Wars shirts. I just have this cool, like, hold on.
It's very cute. Oh my God. Is that a dinosaur with sunglasses? That is so fucking cute. I think I have a shirt like that, but with a bunch of dinosaurs. We should wear them together.
Isn't it something like bodacious or something?
It says the bodacious era or something.
The bodacious era. The bodacious period.
Yes, yes.
Nice. Bodacious was an 80s word, right? And it meant like hot.
Well, like,
isn't it?
Hot, attractive. You might say Adam Driver is bodacious.
He's bodacious.
He's very bodacious in this movie.
This is the height of his bodaciousness.
I think this is when we like started to reach a zenith, and it was just up from here. Like he was always hot. We haven't gotten to Adam Sackler yet. By the way, welcome to the Adam and Andy podcast. I don't know if I've welcomed our listeners.
You haven't welcomed that.
I'm one of your hosts, Nicole.
I'm your other host, Sarah. Sorry, I yawned.
That's okay. And today on the show, we're going to be talking about The Last Jedi. Now,
but it's not. It's not The Last Jedi.
But
I'm just kidding.
It won't be The Last Jedi. Yeah. Well, maybe. I don't know. We haven't talked about we haven't talked about Rise of Skywalker yet, but I don't believe there are any other Jedi at the end.
What about those kids?
Right at the end of this movie. But but a Jedi is a specific sort of religious, a semi-religious order. You know, it's a whole religion.
Classify yourself as a Jedi?
Listen, I tell you what, I don't know if I've talked about this on the show, but on this show, I know we talked about it on the other show, but I've been playing a game called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge on the Oculus headset. So I've been playing this VR game. I don't give a shit about video games unless it's Star Wars. And if it's a Star Wars game, like I just want to drop everything else in my life and do nothing but play, especially in VR, because I'm living in Star Wars. This is the best thing I could ever have. And there's like a couple of stories in that video game where you're a Jedi, and this particular, the one they just released, you're a Jedi with a Padawan, so you have a learner, and you have to teach them all these lessons, and in one of them you have to stack a bunch of different shaped blocks. It took me days to stack these blocks, and when I tell you, I got so angry stacking these blocks, I threw them around. Like, you can use the force, right? And
Mhm.
I just got so furious that I was like throwing the blocks all around the training arena. And I was like, I would they would fail me out of Jedi school so fast. Like, it would be me and Ben Solo just like kicked out. I'm like, where are you going next? I Snoke? Sure. I mean, I've got nothing else going on. Uh
So you'd be a Sith?
No, I don't. I'd like to think I would be a freelance force user.
Freelance Force
I'd like to
user.
think that I would be a freelance force user. I'm not really somebody who likes to join up in any particular religious order. So, but I can tell you one thing. I've been tested and I am no Jedi. Okay? I don't have the patience.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's
You're
great.
welcome. It's a thing. I think we should all try it out sometime. But yeah, stacking blocks. I was like, this fucking sucks. Give me a lightsaber. Let me fucking murder some evil creatures. That's what I want to do. I guess I am a Sith. I don't know. The dark side certainly is hotter, if you know what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about The Last Jedi today. A film that I think is highly anticipated for us to talk about on the show. Sarah and I, if you're just new to the show and you haven't been listening for very long, a couple things. Number one, maybe it goes without saying, but I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. Like, I live and breathe Star Wars. Okay, like I in fact, behind me you can see I've got my Chewbacca stuffy back there. I've got a little R2D2.
R2D2.
Yeah, in addition to our pillows with Adam and Andy's face on them from our photo shoot. I am a fucking nerd. I love Star Wars, and Sarah has found a way to make it so that I only have to talk about it twice a year with her, and that is when we talk about one of the sequel trilogy movies, which we've decided to talk about usually around Christmas. Like, we usually do it in
'Cause that's when they
December.
come out.
Yeah, because that's when they used to come out. So, last year we talked about The Force Awakens in December. And then this year we were going to do The Last Jedi in December, but we're doing House of Gucci, so we've moved it up. And so you're getting it a little early. Sarah, while not as obsessive as I am with Star Wars, you are a Star Wars fan. You do like the movies.
I do like them. Yes, my dad showed them to me when I was 8. Um, and I remember he was like, "These were the biggest thing in 1970 7 through 83, or I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
80. I don't know when the last one came out, but he was like,
1983.
yeah. So he was like, "These were
What
the
year?
biggest."
Oh yeah, yeah. You've got it
Or
now.
the
You were like talking
Oh,
next to your mic.
sorry.
There you go.
But he was like, "These were the big deal, like,
Mm-hmm.
back then," and, like, the special effects were, like, so advanced that
Yeah.
everyone was like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Yes." And I just remember, like, the awe he had for them,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "That's cool." Like, I just, like, because I saw how much he
Mm-hmm.
liked them, it made me like them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I do remember that they re-released them in the theater,
Yes, yes, and of course I
the
went to in high
year.
school. I was in high school when those
Yeah,
came
so
out.
I was,
Yeah.
like, 8, and, we saw the first one, and I
Mhm.
remember coming home and wanting to, like, play pretend, like, play Star Wars pretend, but I was like,
Yay!
"There's only one girl."
I
Like, I was like,
know,
"I have to be Leia." Like, I can't be
I know.
any
Although
like, there's
Leia's
literally
great, but yes,
she's great, but I was like, "I
limited, yeah,
don't wanna be the one girl." Like, I
yeah,
wanna choose which girl I want to be,
yeah, yeah.
you know? So I just remember having that thought when I was 8.
Being the little actor writer that I was, I don't remember when I first saw Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie, because I was like, it's always been a part of my life. Like, it's just always been around. It's always been on. We had them on VHS. I would watch them over and over and over again. And I had all the Mattel. In fact, I got a bunch of figures up here in my office. You can't see them because they're on the wall above my camera, but I've got a whole bunch of uh, the Kenner figures up there. Um, I used to play along with my favorite movies. Like I'd watch them, but I would also like write myself apart for them,
Mm,
in them. And so I made up my own female character because
nice.
I not that I wouldn't want to. I mean, Leia's amazing, but I was, I made my own
I guess I
character.
didn't like how she was. I mean, even at that young age, I could tell that her character was in relation to Luke and Han.
Mm,
And I was like, I wanna be my own person. I don't wanna
yeah,
be like Han's girlfriend or like Luke's sister or
yeah.
like I don't know. I wanted to be like
Mm-hmm.
strong and a Jedi
Mm-hmm.
and Leia was not at the time.
No, although I think she definitely was a as female characters go, like I mean, we're not here to talk about the original trilogy, but we are, so we're doing it. I mean, Leia, I have to say, like, at least when I was growing up, there just weren't that many adventure films where the woman was anything but being rescued. And
Mhm.
yes, the first movie has them going to rescue Princess Leia, but when they get there, they're such a bunch of himbos that
Mhm.
she has to rescue herself.
Mhm.
So that was while while I wish there were more female characters in the original trilogy and all of that, I do think Leia's, she's leading the resistance, she's got responsibilities, like she's not just a damsel in distress, and that
Mhm.
was fucking cool. But I agree with you. The one thing I always wanted was a badass, self-sufficient Jedi that was
Mhm.
a female character, and that is yet another reason why I'm thrilled to talk about this movie because that's
Yeah.
exactly what we have here.
Yeah.
So before we get into the Last Jedi, like really get into it, would you like to get into some Adam and Andy news?
Sure.
Okay, I I have so much fucking news, so much fucking news, Sarah.
Oh my
I have
gosh.
so much news. Okay, I'm gonna just go right into our visual aids.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just going to go right into it because that's just how much fucking news I have. All right. So can you see this? All right.
Yes.
So,
And look at
the
their
I know,
faces.
look
Oh my
at them.
gosh.
So, listeners, right now we're looking at a photo of Andy and
Oh my
Maya
gosh, their
Rudolph.
face. I can't take it. Oh my gosh. I'm
I
sorry.
love them so fucking much. Like this, I feel like this okay, so listeners, the if you don't know, the Baking It trailer came out yesterday for us as of yesterday. As of this recording, it came out yesterday. And Sarah and I were actually hanging out yesterday because we were watching The Last Jedi. And so we watched it together. And this show, I I want to hear your thoughts. What we got all kinds of stuff in here, like how the competition's going to be set up, like who the judges are. We got all kinds of Maya and Andy in cozy. Here's yet another picture of them in some robes, looking super
Oh, look at
cozy.
how cute they are.
I
Look at his hair. Look at that
I
hair.
know his cute little
Oh my gosh,
curls.
so cute.
I feel like the show already radiates comfort to me,
Yeah.
and it's adorable and wholesome, and it's like exactly what I want this holiday
Yes,
season.
totally. And yet it's even though the trailer does seem wholesome, it's still not as wholesome as the Great British Baking Show.
Okay, well that's something
Like,
you watch a lot.
yeah.
It's a little sassy, right?
It's a little sassy, yeah.
The judges are a bunch of sassy grandmas,
Yeah.
which is kind of my second favorite part of the show in addition to Andy and Maya, who I adore both of those actors. Um is the whole like sassy grandmas judging baked goods. Like I'm
Yeah.
so fucking excited about that. In fact, we're so excited that we decided we were gonna do the finale episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine season 8 as our sort of last episode of season 2, which would come out in December. But instead, we've decided to do a baking it like megasode, where we're gonna watch all 6
Mhm.
episodes. We're obviously not gonna talk about them each. That would take forever, but we'll find some way to talk about all of them in one episode, and that's what we'll do in December. And so, listeners, I'm sorry, but we're going to be prolonging are saying goodbye to Brooklyn Nine-Nine because season 8, we'll talk about that in January instead of
Mhm.
in December.
Or we can just pretend it's December part 2.
December part 2, as I like to call it. Although, aren't we ready to leave 2021 behind?
Yes.
Like, didn't I say the other night, I was like,
You
"Oh,
accidentally
yeah."
said, "Let's do that in 2021," and I was like, "Don't make me relive this year again, Nicole."
I think we're all ready to say goodbye to
Yeah.
2021. Not as bad as 2020, but
No.
still had some low points for sure.
Yes.
And then of course here is the baking it,
Aw.
uh,
Yeah, it's like a
title card.
holiday,
It's
totally.
a holiday. I feel like we're gonna and maybe we'll try to make a baked good from the show.
Yeah. Like
And
some gingerbread cookies or
oh,
something, I
I
don't know.
love gingerbread
Mhm.
cookies. My mom has this recipe. It came from like a Southern Living cookbook. My favorite
Mhm.
cookie recipe for the holidays are called melt away butter cookies, and they're
Mm.
literally butter and sugar. That's all they're made of. They're just butter and sugar, and then you squirt them out of a gun. It's like a cookie gun, and
Is there no flour?
no, it's butter. No, I think there's some flour in there at some point, but I remember you put like 4 sticks of butter and like 2 cups of sugar, and I think there's some egg in there somewhere. I don't know. Anyway, it's mostly butter. And then you squirt them out of a cookie gun and you sprinkle sprinkles on top. And you can do different shapes like ornaments and Christmas trees and stuff. And that's like my favorite holiday cookie.
Nice.
Um, so baking it, I mean, I guess we shouldn't well, we're not there yet. We're not gonna get to
Yeah.
that up yet, but that's what we'll be doing in December. News for Andy. Andy, obviously baking it's coming out in December. We did also get I don't know if I sent you a link to it. I know I sent you oh no, I did send you a link. There was a little teaser kind of thing that came out with John Mulaney and Andy. Uh I sent it to you. Chippendale Rescue Rangers coming out on Disney
Did you?
Plus.
When did you send it to me?
I don't I think I sent you a bunch of Adam stuff that day as well. I sent you a bunch of videos of Adam on the Graham Norton show, and then I also sent you a link
Oh, I don't remember the
to
chip. I watched all the Graham Norton ones.
but yeah, it was just a little teaser. It was really funny and cute, and it was Andy and John Mulaney like talking about how Chippendale is going to be coming out soon on Disney Plus. They didn't give us a time or a date, but they also made a cute joke about oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they made a cute joke about how the scripts were super tiny, like this big, like tiny, like the size of a chipmunk script. It was very cute
Why were they so
because Chip and
tiny?
Dale are chipmunks, and they're doing the voices.
Oh, but okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. Did the people who are making this film
It was a
intentionally
joke.
make them?
No,
It was
no,
a
it was a
joke.
joke.
Okay.
Like they were like Andy was like, I was so excited about this project once I read the super teeny tiny script, and then they cut to like a shot of the script, and it's like this big.
Aw, cute.
It was adorable. We don't know when Chip and Dale are coming out. I don't think we're gonna do Chip and Dale on the show because I don't know that I'm thirsty for chipmunks, but I don't know. We
But
can talk
John
about it.
Mulaney.
Do you want to do an episode about it?
We
I
don't we
will.
can skip the moment of thirst,
Well, no, I'm gonna be thirsty if I hear Andy's voice, even if it's coming out of a Chipmunks era.
but just thirst after the chipmunks.
I mean, I can. Don't think I can't thirst after cartoon characters.
Anthropomorphized
I mean,
chipmunks,
have you seen Robin Hood from the Disney movie Robin Hood?
right?
Hot as hell.
Yes, hot.
Okay.
First crush.
All right. Well, listeners, let us know at Adam Andy Pod. Do you want us to cover Chippendale Rescue Rangers? Because we will, if you want us to. Seems weird, but we'll do it. Um. And then also Andy is going to be on the Seth Meyers show on November 24th.
Cool. That's
So
the day before
I
Thanksgiving,
know
right?
that is also I think that's also the day that House of Gucci is released
Mhm.
as well.
Also, I feel like I in a teaser or trailer or something or somewhere I saw that it's only being really only playing Thanksgiving. It's like
What?
only November 24th or
What?
something. It's
House of
House of
No, 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 no,
Gucci.
no. It's gonna be out. We only in theaters, I think is what you saw because it's not being released in streaming yet.
Okay, because it was like only in theaters November 24th, and I was like,
You're
what?
like, "Wait." No. No, we're gonna go see it. We'll talk a little bit more about the end of that at the end of the episode. But yeah, so 11/24, Andy on Seth Meyers. And that's pretty much what I have for Andy. The People's Choice Awards are ongoing. People are still voting for that as well, so we don't have any info on whether he won the People's Choice Award yet, but hopefully he will.
How long do they take to vote?
I don't know. They're still going. You can like vote every day. Apparently, I voted a couple of times, so I'm doing my part. Voting for Andy and Brooklyn Nine-Nine for best comedy show because they're
Yeah.
both up. All right, so moving on to Adam. I There's literally so much happened with Adam that I really couldn't write it all down. Uh, so I just put a bunch of pictures together, and I thought that would help us talk about it. So the first picture I have is of the cast of House of Gucci at the UK premiere of House of Gucci. And
He's the only one that looks comfortable.
I
They all
mean,
look like they're like, I'm in this crazy outfit.
he looks like yeah, I think my favorite meme about Adam standing with his cast members from the UK premiere was like, two, well, it was a uh, Jared Leto and Lady Gaga, but two hip vampires and their accountant was the was the meme, and I was like, yes, that pretty much sums it up. Adam is in a very nice navy. He's wearing color. He's wearing color. Nice navy Burberry suit. Apparently it's Burberry. He's been wearing a lot of Burberry.
I
And
wonder why.
I mean, Lady Gaga's dress, incredible. I mean, Selma Hayek as well. Jared Leto, I whatever. I like his velvet suits are cool. I'm not gonna lie, but as a person, I think he's a dumpster fire. So I don't I reserve comment on him too
Yeah,
much.
is he wearing high heels and a diamond necklace?
Which is fine. His outfit, I don't have a problem with his outfit. His outfit is cool. I don't like him the person. He's a fucking
Yeah,
cult leader, and he does weird shit to people when he's like in character in on film sets, and I think that's fucked up.
yeah.
He's just like he's not a I don't like him as a person. I'm
Okay.
sure he's going to be good in the movie, but I just he's a creep.
I will always remember him as Jordan Catalano.
Oh, believe me, I remember him too. I was a tween in the 90s, Sarah. Of course I remember Jordan Catalano. Anyway, Lady Gaga looked incredible. Here's can you do you this picture? I sent it to you. This
Yes, you
is
did.
Lady
I
Gaga lifting
love
up her leg
it.
and Adam's standing behind
I
her.
love his
This
face.
this happened a week ago. Like this feels like a million years ago to me
It
because so
does,
much
it
has
does.
happened. But like
Yes.
this premiere happened a week ago. I what I love about
Crazy.
all of these pictures, and I think you'll see that, is that it seems to me like that they all enjoy being with each other, like him and Al Pacino and Lady Gaga and even Jared Leto and Selma Hayek, and all of them seem to really enjoy being with each other and hanging and have a good relationship, and they're having fun. Like maybe it's just that because this movie is so wild that they're having fun with it. I feel like when you are opening a movie like The Last Duel, which Adam didn't really participate in the press of that. I mean, he was shooting a film, but also I can see why, going out and doing the flashy thing when you're playing that type of character, that may not have been something that was appealing to him. But and maybe that's because the tone of this movie is, although it includes murder, is maybe a little bit flashier and more fun, and they seem to be having fun with that. And Adam seems very smiley and having fun with that.
Mhm.
So, House of Gucci premiered in the UK. Also, we had Adam on the Graham Norton show. So here he is. They're doing
And
that,
and Lady Gaga as
and
well,
Lady
right?
Gaga was there. Josh Gad was on the show, and
Do you think that Lady Gaga allows people she works with to call her by her real name?
uh, I would think so. Yeah,
Like, is she like, "Adam, call me Stephanie," or, like, instead of, or does
I
he refer
mean,
to her as Gaga? Like, what how do what did they
I
call
don't
her?
know. Listeners, do you know the answer to this? Tweeted us at Animated Pod. Let us know, what do you think Adam calls? I think that when she's just her, she probably just goes by Stephanie. But to be honest, I mean, you saw the documentary, not me. I didn't I think I watched the beginning of it when it was on first out on Netflix, but
She
five and
didn't
a half or
mention
five foot
her real
one or
name at
something.
all.
Oh, okay. Well, and also that documentary I think was a bit of a performance as well. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would imagine that when she's just being with people that she's working with,
Yeah. I
I don't
mean, like
know. I don't know.
like, even when she's being in the credit she's credited as Lady Gaga.
Mhm, mhm.
Like,
Well, I
it's not
mean,
like Stephanie whatever the
but that
fuck
is
her name
that's her
is.
stage name, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that is her artist
Mhm.
personae, I guess, if you wanna say.
Mhm.
Uh, so, yeah, I mean, let her yeah, I actually, maybe that's healthy to have a
Yeah.
separation. I mean, my our production company, Critical Crop Top, I do all of our promoting and talking about the things that we do through that account. Also, when I'm on when I'm being the Adam and Andy count, I feel like I'm taking on a certain identity. I'm not trying to compare myself to Lady Gaga, mind you, but I do feel like there's like a safety there when you're able to separate yourself from the art, and giving yourself a name that is your artist's name is a way to
Mhm.
do that. And I think that that's actually probably kind of healthy to be able to say Lady Gaga is this artist person, and Stephanie,
Well, you
I'm
would think
Stephanie.
that maybe, like, I would always thought of Lady Gaga as, like, her musical
Mhm.
self. She had
Mhm.
an actor self
Mhm.
before she did music,
Mhm.
but I guess I always thought that she would use her, like, think about The Rock. The
Mhm.
Rock used to be, like, in wrestling,
Mhm.
The Rock, but
Mhm.
he uses his real name now, Dwayne Johnson, when he
True.
acts.
True. But also,
I don't
like,
know.
I think in that case, he may want to separate himself from the wrestler to be taken seriously
Yeah,
as an actor, whereas
that's
Gaga
true.
is Gaga no matter where she goes. And
Yeah.
also, I don't know. I think that there's something healthy about having a persona that's an actor, and also it lets you keep something of yourself. I mean, think about how many people feel entitled to Adam, the
Mhm.
person who is just a person who
Yeah,
they don't really know, and, like, if you had an identity that was just you, the artist person, then they get to have that and you get to keep yourself. I don't know.
that's
I think
true.
there's something healthy about that.
Very true. Yeah. This is a
Anyway,
great picture
he
by
looks
the way.
so happy. He's been so happy
Mhm.
and smiling on all these shows, and I just love it. You can tell that they had a good time. Him and Gaga have a really good rapport on all of these shows. This was the show where Graham Norton told them that their sex scene was like the hottest thing he's seen in years, and then they fist bumped. Remember I sent you a picture of
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Um, oh, also, I think I sent you a video from this also, because on the last show you were like, well, did they stay in their accents all the time? As it turns out, it was Gaga who stayed in the accent the whole time, and not Adam.
Yeah.
Adam did not do that. He made a very funny face when she was like, yes, he put up with me being basically Patrizia for the entire time they were working together. Because she said that on Graham Norton, she said it was easier for her to stay in character all the time than to go in and out of character.
That's yeah, that yikes. I can't I can't do
No,
the method thing.
I can't either, but I also respect other, like, people's process, as long as, like, again, and I've
As long
said
as
this
it's
on
not
the show.
abusive.
Yes, as long as you're not being abusive. So I believe Jared Leto does the same thing, as we talked about a second ago or a few minutes ago. I don't know how long ago that was. But I guess this character was not abusive, so maybe he
Except
was
she
more
killed Adam
pleasant to be around.
Driver.
No, I mean Jared Leto's character. So maybe he was more pleasant to be around since he was like a
Oh,
dumb
okay.
buffoon, instead of, the Joker. But yeah, I respect other people's processes as long as it's not abusive to their cast members. I frankly I can see the appeal of staying in character because frankly, I do a lot of joking in between takes, and I think sometimes I use music to refocus myself, so I'll put headphones in when I need to focus. But
Mhm.
I certainly have, and I think I don't know. You've been on set with me. Maybe you agree or disagree with this, but I feel like when it's time to focus, I can focus. But there are
Mhm.
certainly moments where I get jokey in between takes, and
Mhm.
maybe I should be not as jokey. So I understand. I understand that sort
I
of.
mean, I get maybe in between takes, like, being quiet if you're gonna stay in character or staying in character, but, like, when they're it's, like, wrapped for the
Like,
day
when you're, like, at
and you're, like, having
continental breakfast in the
dinner,
morning,
like yeah.
uh,
It's like it's a job, like,
yeah.
I don't know, like,
But
you should
acting is a job where you're using your body and your mind and your emotions as an instrument, so maybe for some people it's easier just to stay there, you know?
Yeah.
Apparently, that's not what Adam does, which I think is a little bit contrary to what we kind of thought based on what other people said, but
Yeah.
maybe he stays. Here's the thing, is everybody, I think that what people have said about him this year as an actor is that he's so kind and generous and fun and enjoyable to be around. And I think that that's I think that when he's in a film like, say, The Last Jedi, where he's got to be brooding and sad and moody, maybe it's easier to stay that way in between takes, and maybe that's why he's not as chuckalucks in between takes if you're
Yeah.
in that kind of role. I feel like if you're having to do something very emotionally heavy, yeah, I would probably stay in that place until the end of the day, because you got to just kind of stay there. Um, but he seems to be having fun with this role, at least. Then, of course, they were all on Good Morning America. The
Sunglasses.
sunglasses, I just they
Look at
look
those
like fucking vampires. I
sunglasses.
love it. They look like
No, I
cool
love it.
vampires. Look at all these motherfuckers in their sunglasses.
Nice.
So
Look at
cute.
Jared Leto's sunglasses.
Jared Leto. You know what? I hate. I don't like him, but I'm
His fashion
that
is
fucking
nice.
cool silk shirt is cool, and it looks like his legs were a little cold, and he's got a little lap blanket.
Oh my
It's like,
gosh. No, that's a skirt of some kind.
oh, is it?
I see the
Oh,
tassels.
is it? Oh, okay. I didn't see him stand up.
Maybe.
Everybody in
Yeah.
this fucking thing is so fucking fashionable. I can't even.
What about
Um,
that guy next to Gaga
which guy are you talking about? Ridley
with the
Scott
white
wearing
hair?
wearing his puffer jacket?
Is that Ridley
That's
Scott?
Ridley Scott. By the way, I just wanted to point out, I also sent you a link, a little blurb about what Ridley Scott had to say about accents in The Last Duel, since we kind of dragged that show about
Ah,
the accents.
I think
Uh,
you did, but I forget what it said.
He said, "We decided not to do French accents. It would have been a nightmare. So we didn't worry about it. And what I have to say to people who are concerned about the accents is just shut the fuck up and watch the movie." That was basically what he said. He's like, "Enjoy the movie and shut the fuck up." And I was like, "Okay, fair. I fine if that's what you want
Yeah,
me to do."
yeah. I'm just curious. Like, I loved Adam in it, and
Yeah.
Matt Damon, and Ben
But you're
Affleck,
right,
and
they
Jodie
could have at
Comer.
least picked a consistent English accent. I'm not gonna get back
What
on this. I'm not
if
gonna
they
get back on
had cast people who could do the accent? They wouldn't have been Adam Driver and Jodie Comer and stuff, but, like, they could have at least been able to do the accent. I don't know.
Eh,
Which is more important, star power or accent
I
power?
mean, I'm glad that Adam was in the movie. He was very good. Also,
Yeah,
like, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were the
they wrote
executive
it.
producers. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
they get to do what they want to do. And then let's see. I think, oh, here's our last photo,
Oh
and
my
this
gosh.
is Adam dressed head to toe in brown, looking like a hot professor on
Look at that face.
Stephen Colbert last night.
Look at that
I know.
face.
Well, I don't usually like, this was one of the pictures of him going in, and I don't usually post pictures of actors of Adam when he's not like wanting to
Like
be photographed.
paparazzi. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me feel a little queasy, but I wanted to get the
But look how
whole outfit. I wanted to
cute.
get the whole
Yeah.
outfit in there. And
So brown.
I know it was controversial, I'll say. A
It
lot of,
was?
well, on Twitter people were like, "Ah, what is
Why?
happening?" Like, they're like, "We wanted you to wear color, but not all the same color." But I thought he
Aw,
looks
it's
very
not all the
nice.
same color. I mean, it's all browns, but different shades of
I
brown.
thought he looked nice. I like it. I think it looks really good with his skin tone and his eyes and
Does
stuff.
he have a stylist by
I'm
the
sure
way?
he does, but also there's been a lot of talk about him just like in his DILF sweater era, I believe is what they've been
Eh,
calling it. In fact, I think the Barely Hanging On podcast has been calling this his
you
DILF era.
know, he seems like the kind of person who wouldn't have a stylist just to
He
be like,
definitely
"Why do
has
I
a
need a
hair he has
stylist?"
a hairstylist for sure, because she goes with him everywhere.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Her name's Amy, and she
Oh.
goes with him everywhere.
Oh my
I don't know
gosh.
if there's someone picking out his clothes or not. Maybe it's Joanne, who's like, he's like, "I'm gonna wear all brown," and she's like, "Are you though?
And he's like,
Okay."
"Yes."
And she's like, "Okay, at least wear a on your jacket."
Well, no, the jacket with the
Yeah,
corduroy looks good.
I like this outfit. But
Mhm,
also like I will wear a unitard um
mhm.
out in public as an outfit. So I don't
Yeah,
know if you should look at me for fashion tips. I
well,
don't
like,
know.
yesterday, I wore every shade of gray.
Good. Oh.
Like, I
Wow.
wore, like, a gray dress with, like, a different color gray
Okay.
tights, and then a different color gray shoes, and then a different color gray coat,
Okay.
and, like, a gray like, it was all different shades of gray, and, like, I don't know. It was weird. It definitely wasn't fashionable, but I was like, "I don't care."
I mean, look, fashion is an expression of oneself, right? And Adam was feeling
Brown.
brown. He was feeling
Mhm. He
brown.
was feeling beige and taupe and
And I actually subscribed to Paramount Plus so that I could watch
yeah.
the interview, and then I unsubscribed right after the interview was
Ah!
over. Yeah, Adam talked about Steven asked him. Oh, also there are a couple Raylos that I follow on Twitter who actually went to the thing, and
Hmm.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, he Colbert asked him if he preferred French food or Italian food because he shot in France for Last Duel, he shot in Italy for um House of Gucci. Apparently, Italian food is the answer to that question.
I mean, duh.
I've never been
It
to either country,
Oh, I've
so
been to both of them,
oh,
Italian food, hands down,
okay.
because it has pasta and, like, you can't go wrong with pasta,
It's
like,
true.
it's just but French food is like bread and cheese.
Well, I do love a bread and a cheese.
I love bread and cheese too, but, like, pasta,
Okay.
like,
All right.
come
Well,
on.
Adam agrees with you. And I think I'm sure more things happened. Actually, I know today after I got up for my nap right before this, an interview got released of Adam talking about Burberry, the Burberry ad and what that was like and swimming in the water with horses, and I won't get into that too deeply other than to say that he it sounded terrifying to me. It sounded
Swimming in the water with horses.
terrifying. Well, no, he didn't sound terrified. Felt terrified listening to him talk about it, where he was like, "Okay, so I had to horse had to swim past me, and I had to grab its mane and get on its back and come out of the water." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "I mean, it wasn't a big deal or anything. You just the horse looks at you with these wide eyes, and he's chomping in the air, and you just have to avoid getting your hand bit." And I was like, "What? What? That sounds like my fucking nightmare."
Avoid getting your hand bit, just grab the
Um,
mane.
just grab the mane and don't grab his mouth because he'll bite your fucking hand off. Uh, what a
That's
crazy
funny.
life this man leads. Anyway, God, that's it. That's all I got for Adam and Andy news. I know it was a
Wow,
lot.
that's a lot
A
of
lot of shit
news.
happened. It was a very bountiful couple of weeks in November. Uh, so shall we transition to talking about The Last Jedi? Are we ready for that?
Yes.
Look,
Yes, I think we are.
I actually went through my notes. Sarah and I watched this movie, half of it together last night. We made the mistake of watching with my children, so we could only watch about 4 minutes at a time before we were interrupted. So we had to watch the rest of it alone. But I have wrote many pages of notes, but I condensed them down, and now I'm only looking at 2 pages of bullet points. I think you would be proud of me.
I'm very
Um,
proud of you.
uh, so all right, The Last Jedi. You and I saw this movie together in the theater.
You did.
It was not my first time because I went and saw it with Chris. I think I saw this movie probably 4 or 5 times in the theater.
Did we which ones did we see together in the theater? Was it
I
just
think
this
we
one
saw
or
didn't we see
we saw
everything?
all of them?
I feel like we did. I mean,
Okay.
I know that I always see the Star Wars movies multiple times, but I
Yeah.
remember this one specifically because this was my son Lucas's first
Lucas's
movie
first time, yeah.
in a movie theater, and this was, I mean, he still loves
Yeah.
Star Wars, but this was like at the height of his obsession.
R2D2.
Yeah, R2D2. R2D2 was his best friend. He like had a R2D2 figurine that he slept with at night. He
Mhm.
was and C3PO. He would hold them both in his hands and
And
sleep
this
with
is when
them.
he was introduced to BB-8.
BB-8. No, he wasn't. He was introduced to BB-8 in The Force
Oh,
Awakens.
the
So
first one. Yeah, yeah,
he had
yeah.
seen The Force Awakens, but this was the first time he saw a movie in the movie theater. It was a little long for him. I remember he had to sit in my lap halfway through because he was getting a little restless. But he did enjoy the movie. So yeah, you and I saw this together. I guess before we get into it, like, what were your impressions of this movie after seeing it? If you can remember back to then, what did you think
I
about it?
remember thinking that the relationship between Kylo and Rey was very interesting,
Mhm, mhm,
and I really liked the way they were playing that and the
mhm,
way it was being told.
mhm, mhm.
I remember I was dying to know what the deal was with Rey's parents, and
Yeah,
I wasn't
you didn't like that.
satisfied at the end.
Mhm.
I was like, "We're gonna find out in the 3rd movie the real deal."
Okay, and
Um,
and I guess we'll talk about that,
yeah,
how you felt about whether that was satisfying when we get to The Rise of
yeah.
Skywalker. Cool. So here's what I'll say about The Last Jedi. I always I liked the movie. I remember coming out of it. But before I say anything, I just want to let everybody know that The Last Jedi now is one of my favorite Star Wars movies. Like this and Empire Strikes Back are my favorites. I can't pick which one I like more. Of all the Star Wars things I've ever seen, shows, TV, all of it. The Last Jedi and Empire Strikes Back, I feel like are the perfect Star Wars stories for me, and the execution and the characters and what they're going through and just like some of the visuals. Like I think The Last Jedi has some of the most dazzling visual storytelling I've seen in any Star Wars movie. When I walked out of the theaters after seeing it for the first time, I remember thinking, "Huh." I was like, "That's not what I expected." And it wasn't that I didn't like it, but it was like I had to think about it for a little while. It didn't hand me everything easily, I think, the way that The Force Awakens did. I feel like The Force Awakens was like pushed a lot of I'm not and The Force Awakens was fantastic as well, but it did push a lot of nostalgia buttons, that were like, here's let me give you something you like, but also give you some new things. And I deeply love that movie. But The Last Jedi did a lot of I think when Luke Skywalker says to Rey, "This is not gonna go the way you think," I feel like that's this movie, is like, this is not gonna go the way you think. And I was really surprised by how a lot of things went and where characters ended up. And when I first walked out, I was like, wow, that's like, this is different. And it was a little hard for me at first to parse out how I felt about that. And I now feel that this movie holds up for me so well because it took the things that I liked and gave me something new and gave me things that I didn't expect and gave all the characters some really interesting directions that made a lot of sense in terms of where they started in The Force Awakens and was a good progression for them. Um and so that's kind of where I was at the time. And but now years later it is It is uh, I can't say it's my favorite Star Wars movie because The Empire Strikes Back has such deep I have such a deep love for that movie because it's like the movie of my childhood that I loved so much. But I also think that The Last Jedi and Empire have a lot of share a lot of similarities, without The Last Jedi being a repeat of The Empire Strikes Back in any way. But I think that they have a lot of parallels, which I'll be happy to talk about. But anyway, so going into talking about the movie, I wanted to start with a Twitter thread that I had read
Oh, okay.
about the female gaze. I sent this to
Mm.
you a
Was it
lot.
a long time
It
ago?
was a long time
Yeah.
ago, and but I feel like it's something I want to kind of get us in the headspace of because this movie is really unique in that way, and having somebody explain it. And I've read about the male gaze. I mean, I'm sure we all have about the male gaze and women and how they're reflected in film. And you and I have talked about this a lot in our other podcast, The Feminine Mistake. And I feel like one of the things that set me off center about this film is that I'm just not as accustomed to seeing stories from the female gaze. And I know that this is not a movie made by a woman, but it definitely seems to like this. It seems like the filmmaker Ryan Johnson really like I don't know how intentional this was, but it is very much the female gaze. And I'd love to talk about why you think he would have chosen that. We all know that films are not a mistake. Like everything you do in a film is
Mhm.
on purpose. So
Yeah.
anyway, I just wanted to start by reading this and then maybe we can reflect on it. Um, so this is not my original thoughts. This is something I read on Twitter. And I think it looks like back in February, uh, or some time ago. Anyway, the Twitter user is fee at fee underscore Kenobi. And she's talking I kind of scrolled down a bit, but what she's saying is that The Last Jedi is an example of the female gaze and why maybe some people didn't find the movie appealing because it felt unfamiliar for that reason. Anyway, so she says essentially the female gaze focuses on what women actually find attractive and the physical features they focus on, whereas the male gaze focuses on what men think women find attractive, which I think is a really important distinction.
Yeah.
And again, when we say men and women, at least I think when we say the male gaze, we're talking about cis, you know, men. That's what we're talking
Mhm. Yeah.
about. So one of the examples of the male gaze is the classic muscle tank mirror selfie, which this is hilarious to me. If you know a man who works out often and who has a dating app, odds are good that he has a similar picture posted. That's because he believes that his muscles and physique are what attract women. And I remember I remember you telling me back in the day when you were on these dating apps, like all these
Yep.
absurd
Gotta have
photos.
a gym selfie, yeah.
Gotta have that gym selfie. And it's not that I don't appreciate muscles, but it's like I do
It's not the
realize,
important thing.
yeah, I do now realize that the way that they're foisted upon me often is not the thing that really attracts me to a person
Mm.
first. Like
Yeah.
I'm attracted to somebody for something else, and then the muscles
And then
also
you're like, "Ooh,
become,
they also have nice." Yeah,
yeah, it's
exactly.
like a nice little it's like icing on the cake if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so she says the current theory surrounding the female gaze, however, suggests that women focus more on expressive features such as eyes, hands, and lips. Through those
Mhm.
features and their expressions, women can find more nuanced and satisfying attraction. And I
Mhm.
think, without getting too deeply into the film yet, I feel like once I read that, I was like, of course. I mean, this movie is all eyes and hands and lips. At least
Mhm.
between, Ben
Kylo
Solo
and
and Kylo
Rey.
Ren and Rey. Like there a lot of those scenes are very lots of close-ups and I was
Mhm.
really I really noticed that a lot this time when I watched it, just how
Mhm.
many close-ups, especially in the scene at the beginning with Snoke and Kylo Ren, and where he's taking the mask off, and you see like the scar that Rey's given him,
Mhm.
and he's just like it's such tight shots of this anguish
Lots
on
of
his
shots of
face,
his face. I mean, yeah,
so
that they
many.
noticed lots of shots of everyone's face, like, just, lots of,
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like there in most action films, or at least films like this,
Mhm.
there's more full
Yes.
body and, like, action kind of shots and
Mhm.
fewer of the emotional
Mhm.
kind of
Like,
shots
these are the
that
kind of shots you would see in a drama, like a tense drama where
yeah.
you're tight on people's faces and micro expressions, but here in a what you would consider to be an adventure film or whatever, a action
And
film if you
yet
wanna call
there
it that.
still are some very sweet action shots of,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
wide kind of, like,
Yes.
actiony. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
So to continue, okay, so she says, which leads me to our darling Raylo. It's not a secret that TLJ, The Last Jedi, uses hands in a beautifully symbolic way, and we'll talk about that scene. The hands touch scene, of course, features both hands bare, which is when we see their connection begins to grow. In the elevator scene, Ray seeks eye contact to break through, and I'm looking forward to talking about that scene as well. The throne room scene includes close-up shots of both hands as they engage in the fight and call their weapons. And finally, when Kylo asks Rey to join him, we see her glance desperately down at his hand, now covered, and begins to cry. In my experience, a majority of people who intrinsically view Reylo as a romantic pair are women, which has been my experience as well. Although there are men also, they're just not as many, at least in my experience. The concept of the female gaze supports the idea that women, due to Ryan Johnson's deeper understanding of this concept and how it plays in the film, got to see what other fans may not. The things that many male fans would look for to indicate a romantic pairing were not blatantly displayed to them because they were given in a female gaze perspective that has very little presence in popular media and no prior presence in Star Wars. Which
Interesting.
yeah, I feel like and I wanna talk about myself and this in a moment because I feel like I too was not at first clued into what was going on here because I am also not used to seeing the female gaze presented in films. However, the touches, the reaching hands, the intense glances, twitching lips, and yeah, twitching lips. I mean, that really describes, I feel like, a lot of these close-ups of Adam Driver's face, like
Mhm.
the anguished twitch of the lips, you know?
Mhm.
The searching stares were all building obvious intimacy to female viewers, even if they were not as easily or readily interpreted by their male counterparts. Those vulnerable features in Kylo resonated much more strongly with female audience members as well, presumably because women are more attuned to the expression they hold. Anyway, that's a part of the thread. That's not the whole thing.
Yeah, I have to say when I first saw it, I definitely got that. I definitely got that. Oh, they're
Mhm.
intimate. There's a romantic element to
Mhm.
this, even though it wasn't explicitly stated or
Yeah.
obvious. I definitely subconsciously got that message.
Um I did not. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. Like I was attracted to him. Obviously,
Mhm.
because for one, I went into the movie being attracted to this actor, but also I found myself really attracted to the character and empathizing with him and like really feeling I felt the intimacy, like the intimacy was obvious and the intimacy between them was obvious. But I think that number one, because I am so accustomed to what the male gaze says romance looks like being sort of thrust upon me. I think that I was slower to pick up on it, but also because I think that often female characters are given a choice between being falling in love or being a hero. You don't get to have
Mhm.
both. And
Yeah.
I think that is really common in all of the films that we've kind of grown up with. And
Yeah.
so for me to reconcile the fact that a character could be a hero and also fall in love, I think was
Mhm.
something I just was not accustomed to. And so
Yeah.
I didn't see it right away the first
I
couple
will
of times I
say
watched this.
I will, like, you know, put a caveat on what
Mhm.
my initial reaction. It's that, um, that's what I thought it was. That's what I was like,
Mhm.
"This is what I want it to be.
I
This
want
is
it to be
what it
this.
should be."
Yeah.
But I didn't believe
Mhm.
that the writer or director
Mhm.
was in on it, that
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
intended for that to be the
Mhm.
case because it was so subtle. Like,
It
I
seems subtle at the time, but
yeah,
now when I look at it, I'm like,
yeah.
this is like one of the horniest movies I've ever seen. Like it is the pining, the longing. It's like, you know, it's
I think
so obvious to me now.
it's so obvious in their expressions and their gestures and stuff,
Mhm.
but the words that they say,
Mhm.
it is not obvious, and I
It's
think
not.
that it kind of points at that we're so tied to the words, and
Mhm.
we're so much more willing to believe words than we are, like, expressions and gestures and stuff.
Even
Like
though people often don't say what they're feeling, and in
yeah.
this circumstance where we have two people that are enemies on opposite sides of
Mhm.
a war, of course they wouldn't say what they're really feeling.
But also, I think in this particular universe, Star Wars, subtlety like that has not really been explored,
Mhm.
like, in
Mhm.
pre previous films, like, it's
It's
always
true.
like, you get what you get, like, it's
Yeah.
right there,
I
you
love you,
know?
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this
Which is
is
a great scene
definitely
also. That's a great scene also.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's the subtlety. I don't think I don't think Star Wars fans as a collective were ready for the subtlety and the artistry of this movie. They just weren't ready
Mhm.
for it.
Yeah.
Maybe and I hope that I know I see the cycles of fandom of Star Wars fandom where the Star Wars fandom rejects a thing and rejects it except for a small group of really and the Raylos are not a small group. I mean, they actually are not a small group. I don't know if Disney is listening, but the people that like the sequel trilogy are actually quite a large vocal group. But the really vocal, I think, group of people that consider themselves to be the I guess the big straight male I like my Luke's Skywalker and my original trilogy, and I don't like the prequels and I don't like the sequel trilogy. Those folks I think who've been very vocal and resistant to this story, I don't think they were ready for this.
Mm-mm.
And I think what they want in Star Wars is valuable, and now there's a whole discussion that I don't want to have right now about the toxic parts of the fandom and how there's actually a lot of alt-right people in the fandom who've co-opted Star Wars as this emblem of their
Oh, no.
ideology, which I don't know if they've ever seen a Star Wars movie, but that is not the values of the good people of the heroes in this universe. But anyway.
Oh, so I'm sorry, just
Mhm.
because I know nothing about this. They've co-opted the Resistance or
They
the
feel like they're
First
the
Order?
resistance,
Oh.
or they're the rebels, I should say, because I don't think many of them like the sequel trilogy at all. Um,
Hmm.
and anyway, I don't want to get into all that,
Yeah.
but so I'm not
Okay.
talking about them. I am
Okay.
talking about people, maybe people that were young boys when Star Wars came out, and they have a certain idea of what Star Wars is, and they were not satisfied with the prequel trilogy, and they were not satisfied with the sequel trilogy, and they want what they want. And I feel like there are shows that can be, or stories that can be told to satisfy them, and that's fine. But it's when people want something and they don't get it, and then they shit on the thing that other people like.
But
That
also, I
sucks.
think that nothing could satisfy them. Like,
No.
they have the
Yes.
nostalgia for the original trilogy, and
Mhm.
there's literally not nothing that could, um, satiate that.
And a story can't live in nostalgia. It has to move forward.
Mhm.
And what's special about this story is that it moves the story forward, I feel like. Anyway, to circle back to my sort of ignorance as to the romance, I saw the intimacy of the connection, but I was really focused on more of like a bond that was more based in understanding and loneliness and connection, and perhaps like even harkening back to what he says in The Force Awakens when he says, "You need a teacher." And I was like, oh, is he wanting to take her on as an apprentice? And I didn't see it as much of a romance until The Rise of Skywalker. And we're not
Mhm.
going to talk about The Rise of Skywalker today. We will talk about it eventually. But when they kissed in The Rise of Skywalker, I was like, oh. And it's like a
Was
whole
that a
light
surprise for you? The kiss was a surprise?
a whole, yes, a whole series of fireworks went off in my brain, and suddenly everything made sense. And
Mhm.
then and that movie made me a Reylo, and so for a lot of people,
Mm.
I know that movie is very upsetting, and we can talk about that when we talk about that movie. But it led me to the place where I am today, where these characters and their relationship has obviously overtaken my life. So
I would say that I was a Ray I mean, I'm not a fangirl of any type of thing, but I would
you
say that
don't obsess over things in the way that I do.
yes,
You're not
so I'm
reading you don't have, like, 80 open tabs of fanfic on your phone like I do.
yeah. No, no, but that's totally okay for
Yeah,
you to have that, like,
yeah,
that's not a bad thing.
mhm.
I just personally don't have that, but I would consider myself I dug their relationship
Yes.
from the first film, from The Force Awakens, when they
They
had that fight.
yes, they really I really dialed into them right away. I think I didn't my conscious brain didn't recognize the romance element
Yeah.
until they kissed, which again is like, I'm used to having stuff made very obvious to me because that's the
Mhm.
only way romance is presented in
But
most of our
also, if
stories.
you think about it, it's so, like goes back to the well-known trope. It doesn't seem
Mhm.
like a trope when it's done, but
Yeah.
if you think about it, it's the trope of 2 enemies who
Yes.
fall in love.
Enemies to lovers, which is a
Yeah.
classic romance and a classic fanfic trope, and what makes this story interesting. And I hope if everyone is now taking pity on me for my ignorance, that knowing that I now can see this, and I can see it reflected in other media, I now am able to pick up on this stuff a lot sooner. So, for example, when I was
Mm.
watching the Loki show, which I know you've also watched,
Mm. Yeah.
I was the only one in the room for the first couple episodes who recognized that. I was like, "Oh, this is they're gonna kiss. This is a romance." And everybody else in the room was like, "Are you fucking serious? They're the same person." And I was like, "No, no, they're not the same person.
Oh,
First of all, but
I saw
also,
that too. Yeah.
right?" I
I
was like,
totally saw that, yeah.
yes. I was like, "What? Of course. Who would Loki fall in love with but another version of himself? That is the
Mhm.
only person he could fall in love with truly."
Well,
And
it yeah, it wasn't even the
mhm,
logic of that, it was
mhm.
just all this
The
subconscious, like, stuff
subconscious,
between
the
them that was just like
subtext, the imagery. I knew it before anybody else did. They all eventually got on board, but I was like, "Oh no. This show is gonna end with them kissing, I promise you. And I have Raylo to thank for that, because
Yeah.
otherwise I would not have picked up on that subtlety, I don't think.
I
Anyway,
think of it more as my, like, what I want, like, it's like
and
I
I
am
want it
not
too now.
aware of the subconscious
Yes.
stuff going on, but my subconscious is like, "This is what you want," like,
Yes. I'm shipping all kinds of
I
people
always
now.
want love.
Yes, and because you've known me for a long time, romance and romance stories were never that appealing to me.
Mhm,
I have Ryan Johnson and Raylo to thank for my newfound interest in romance and romantic stories, and I have to say that
mhm.
it has enriched my life,
Yes.
tremendously.
I'm so glad because, like, that is something, like, I've always loved, and I know that you are very capable of love and being in love and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and so I kind of was like, I want Nicole to experience the joy of a rom-com.
And I think what it didn't appeal to me about it before was that it didn't feel like a story that was for me. Even when it was a
Mm,
romance story, it felt
yeah.
like, again, I want to go back to the idea that there's the female gaze and what women find romantic and appealing, and then there's the idea that of the male gaze that is showing you what you think is appealing. And
Mhm.
we're not going to talk. I don't want to talk about this movie in depth, but I remember I was thinking a lot about this at the time when we were doing what's that fucking movie with the male strippers that Channing Tatum's in?
Uh,
Magic Mike. We were
Magic
doing
Mike.
Magic Mike on our other show, the Feminine Mistake
Mhm,
podcast, earlier this year, probably around the time that these tweets came out.
mhm,
And I was like, yes, that the Magic Mike is the male gaze to me, telling
mhm.
me what I think is attractive.
Yeah, it
But
totally
this movie is
is.
so much hotter than that
Yes.
movie to me.
Yes, that you're so right that is, like, even though there's supposed to be these straight
Mhm.
men strippers
Mhm.
who are supposed to be attractive to women, and they're portrayed as, like, they're stripping for
Yes.
women,
Yeah.
it still was like, this is what a man thinks
That
is
women think is
attractive.
attractive. Yeah, all
Yeah.
the shots, the way it was composed, the whole thing. This feels so like steamy to me, this whole movie.
Steamy. Mhm.
Um, okay, so I want to get into some of the finer points of the movie. First of all, I want to say I guess I just want to go with some things that I really love about this movie, and we've talked about Raylo a lot, so I'm going to go over to some of the other characters for a second. I also wanted to talk about the storyline between Poe Dameron and Admiral Holdo, who I love. I absolutely love Laura Dern. I love Admiral Holdo. Again, a story that I very much identify with. A woman in charge and the hotshot who wants to be in charge underneath her cannot deal with it.
Mhm.
And I know that I feel like that's something I never see in a movie, really. I mean, maybe you see it a little bit more now recently, but it's something that I hadn't really seen a lot portrayed in media before, but something that my whole life, like my whole life, I've been trying to get men to fucking listen to me at a table. And that's what this whole thing is about. Poe Dameron makes a critical error that costs the lives of almost
Tons of
everyone in
people.
that
Yeah.
in several times in the beginning with the bombers. Leia tells him not to continue with the mission. It was just a distraction. Let's get out of here. He doesn't listen. Then later, a bunch of people die trying Holdo has this great plan of kind of sneaking off the ship and waiting for the first order to pass. She knows that there's too many of them for them to fight back. She knows that. And yet, because Poe, she won't divulge all of her plans to Poe because it's none of his fucking business. He sets a plan in motion that he thinks is the right thing to do, but really it costs a bunch of people their lives.
Yeah. So, I talk about my perception of that? So,
Absolutely. Yes.
I mean,
Please
that's
do.
what we're here for, right?
Mhm.
So, the first few times I saw this movie, I was stuck
Mhm.
in the mindset of, so we saw the first movie and we're,
Mhm.
like, pro Poe.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
Poe is
And I'm still
great.
pro Poe when this movie is over. Let me be honest about that.
Yeah.
But
So, I was still in the mindset of, I'm on Poe's side,
mhm.
and so no matter what he did, it
Mhm.
was like there's a justification, or
Mhm.
he's just passionate, and he's
Mhm.
just, trying to do what he thinks is right, and
Mhm.
I viewed her as, like, the opposition,
Mhm.
the enemy,
Mhm.
the
The
shrill kind
antagonist,
of
which
yeah.
I think is what you're supposed to do. I think that's exactly
Yeah,
what I think that's what Ryan Johnson wants you to think.
but if you really think about it, it's like she had the right perspective,
Mhm.
but, like, it really did point out that we are still in the society stuck in
Mhm.
this mindset of
Listen to the man, not the
listen to
woman.
the man, not the woman.
Yes.
Exactly, yes,
I feel like
and
that
yeah,
moment when he's like, where he's trying to, where he like first starts talking to her about their situation, and he's like, "We're running out of fuel," and she's like, "Thank you for making me aware." Like that
yeah.
moment is so perfect. And the way that he's like, "I just wanna know what's going on," and she's like, "Of course you do." And I'm like, to have you don't get to the position that you don't get to admiral without that, like, having that level of, so assuredness about yourself.
Mhm,
Like, how many
yeah,
times has she been questioned
mhm,
by, arrogant pilots or other
yeah,
people who don't trust her, even though she has more experience and strategy than any of them,
mhm,
you know?
yeah, and at first I was also distracted by the purple hair and
Mhm.
the
She's
outfit,
so soft and
um
feminine.
yeah, so, like,
Yeah.
I was just like that at first was like, "Ah, why do they have her be,
Mhm.
like, feminine? Like, she should be, like if she's gonna be a boss, she
She needs
should"
to
and,
be,
like,
like, in khakis and
why
structured
was I
suits.
know, but why was I thinking this? You know, like,
Exactly.
what is
It
wrong with
totally
me?
reverses your expectations because it's not about the outer shell. It's about the inner shell of strength. And Holdo shows us how strong she really is by doing something that none of that people have talked about for years about what would happen in Star Wars. What would happen if you went into hyperspace and an object was in front of you? It would blow
Mhm,
everything apart. And for
mhm,
her to sacrifice herself in such a a brutal way. I mean,
mhm,
like she may get injured, she may die on that ship, she may die. It may take hours for her to die. We don't know. It's not the same as dying in a ship that blows up. She who knows what happened to her. Like for
mhm,
her to do that, uh, so that everyone else can get away, like that is strength. For her to not
mhm.
give in to this thing that we women give into, which is to try to appease everyone.
But
Uh,
also she sacrifices herself, which is
yes,
another thing that women tend to
that's
do.
true, that's true, but a thing that heroes do in Star Wars, so
That's
I'll give it a
true.
pass because Obi-Wan
Yeah,
Kenobi does that as well, and
mhm,
many other characters sacrifice
yeah,
themselves, in this story. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that, but I do think at the end of the movie, I'm still on Poe's side because he learns. He
yes.
learns, and I think that, again, Ryan Johnson did an excellent job of giving every character something important to move them forward.
Mhm,
So for Poe, it's taking him from that hotshot pilot in The Force Awakens, and I just watched that movie last night, again. So I watched The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens recently, and Poe is this wide-eyed, hotshot, pilot, and then in this movie he's maturing into a leader.
mhm,
We're on the path to making him a leader because ultimately in order to transition away from the original trilogy characters, the sequel trilogy characters have to take on these positions of leadership, and this was a great story for him. And again, Leia's line, get your head out of your cockpit. Not everything can be solved by getting into a plane and blowing something up, or a ship and getting
mhm,
blowing something up. That's amazing. It boils his character down to its very essence.
yeah,
And not to get too deeply into the ancillary media beyond this, but I've also read the book Resistance Reborn, which comes in between this and Rise of Skywalker. And that book is all about Poe dealing with the guilt of his actions from this
wow,
movie and how there are people in the resistance who don't trust him and don't want to listen to him because they were under Admiral Holdo's, they were her team. They were the people that were under her command, and they blame him for her death. And
mm,
so there's all this great character work in that book, on Poe's behalf, of him trying to learn that he can't, like, Leia is ill, she's dying, she's not going to last much longer, and eventually someone's going to have to be the leader, and he's just not sure if he's ready to do it. And I think that's a really beautiful I would like to have seen them explore that more in The Rise of Skywalker. I feel like they scratched the surface of it, but I feel like I really wanted to see I would have liked to have seen that more. That was
Mm,
a really good, solid story for him. Anyway,
cool.
I also wanna talk about, Finn for a second, um, because at first glance, I was annoyed when I first saw this movie. I was like, "Oh, they took Finn away from Rey. He went on his own adventure. They weren't even together." Like, I wanted to see more of them together. And also, I was like, I was mad. I was kind of pissed off. Not pissed off is the wrong word. I was like, "Oh, but what Finn did didn't even matter because it didn't. He didn't complete his mission. Like, it wasn't
Yeah,
successful." But I didn't.
yeah,
But now I see this for what it is, which is it's not about whether Finn completes a mission or not. It's about Finn making a choice to join the resistance. And that's what his whole storyline is about, which is frankly, I think, pretty great considering that as a child, he was stolen, made a soldier, never given a choice whether to join or not. And then he jumps right out of that into another place where he's being forced to join something. But really he's just there because his only friend in the world is in trouble and she needs him, you know? And so that story is really fascinating. So for him to go off on his own adventure, bond with someone else other than Ray, and have to make a choice what he's going to fight for, I think is really fantastic. So I just wanted to talk about Finn for a second. I don't know if you had any thoughts about Finn or his journey. I know you and I, when we were watching it, you were like, Canto Bite isn't my favorite part. And I want to talk about why I actually really love it now. But go ahead if you've got something you want to
yeah.
say
I
about
think
Finn.
the first time I saw the movie, the can what is it called again?
Canto Bite is the
Canto
sort
Bite.
of gambling planet that we go to, the
Yeah,
fancy planet.
Ripley Planet. Um, yeah, I guess there wasn't enough substance there for
Mhm,
me to get
mhm,
why they needed to I guess the filmmaker in me was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so expensive to, like,
mhm,
costume and,
mhm,
like,
mhm,
makeup and, like,
mhm,
the CGI and the set and, like, oh,
mhm,
that just looks, like, so expensive for, like, not much substance."
mhm.
I don't know why I was thinking in
You
those
know,
terms, but
I don't blame you. I did feel it was a bit frivolous the first couple times I saw this movie. And I know there are people out there right now listening who are screaming who love Canto Bite, and just hang on a second, I'm going to get to it. But I think ultimately what I realized is that the Canto Bite sequence felt a lot more like it belonged in this prequel trilogy to me
Mhm,
than it belonged in my nostalgic place, which is the original trilogy. And
mhm.
I want to and I think we talked about this on The Force Awakens, and maybe we didn't. I should have listened to that podcast to see what we actually talked about. So if I'm treading old ground again, listeners, forgive me. But when so I grew up, I've been a Star Wars fan my whole life. I grew up with the original trilogy, and so that's where my entry point is for this fandom. When the prequel trilogy came out, I was like, "Ooh, this is not what I expected," and I didn't really like it. There were parts of it I liked. I did like Revenge of the Sith a lot. But it wasn't at the time something I liked, and there was all this negativity around it that I think fed my dissatisfaction for it.
Mhm.
So that said, I have now come to the point in my life where I can look at all of the stories as a whole and I see its place in the story and how it fits. And that it was just, again, it was giving me something that wasn't my nostalgia. It was like a different story. And I do think there are flaws with it. I don't want to get into it too deeply, but I think George Lucas was really pushing the technology of CGI and virtual sets. And we
And
maybe
also he
weren't
didn't know
there
how to
yet.
direct actors.
Um, yeah, there's a bit of that, but, honestly, I can even get into that. I feel like our characterization often of Hayden Christensen's performance is like a petulant, whiny, like, I mean, he is a child, basically. He's a
Yeah.
teenager who's been given like, he's had the weight of the chosen one thrust upon him, and to know that he later becomes Darth Vader, like, yeah, somebody who becomes Darth Vader, maybe they are a little obsessive, maybe they are immature, maybe they are a bit of a creep.
Oh, well, no, I'm not
So
talking about,
mhm,
the
yeah.
characters, I'm just talking about the acting itself
I th
it just those actors are good, I've seen them
yeah,
in other
yeah.
things, but it just felt like George Lucas maybe didn't know how to
How to
direct
direct
them.
them. I think that's a fair, criticism. I do think when I look at it now, I can see what George Lucas was trying to do. I think he was trying to make a kids movie. They're mostly kids movies, except for Revenge of the Sith, which is maybe I like it a little bit more because it's darker. It's very dark compared to the other two. But I think he was, if you watch them from the beginning and you see it go from, it's almost like when you watch the Harry Potter movies. Like if you watch Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets, those movies are more frivolous and silly.
Mhm.
And then as you get into deeper into the story, it gets darker and more adult.
And
And
that's how the books are too.
yeah, and that's how the books are. And that's, I think if you watch the Star Wars sort of Skywalker saga, if you want to call it that, I don't know if I really even like that term, but if you want to watch the main storyline movies from beginning to end, that is exactly what happens. It starts out a little more silly, a little more lighthearted. It gets darker as we go on. And more adult as we go on. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I actually really, there are a lot of things I really love about the prequel trilogy. And I also see how people that are in generations under mine, who that was their movie that they grew up with, like they deeply revere and love the prequel trilogy. And so this movie, honestly, The Last Jedi, I feel like is the only movie, to circle back to this movie. This is the only movie I feel like in the Skywalker saga, again, if you want to give it that name, which I don't know that I do, but I don't know what else to call it. Um, it's the only movie that bridges the gap between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. It's the only movie that mentions Darth Sidious, and I feel like Canto Bight tonally feels more like something from the prequel trilogy. And why shouldn't we have something fun and frivolous? This is a world where there's endless amounts of aliens and crazy costumes and cool locations, and so often we're in this like dark, drab, like resistance Jedi garb, and we're missing the fun, the prequel trilogy had all these cityscapes and all these like
Mhm.
urban areas and all these bright lights and crowded places and big extravagant costumes, and more Star Wars should have that, I feel like. And so to me, Canto Bight now represents that spirit, and I like to see more of those kinds of worlds in Star Wars. Anyway, I don't know if you want to respond to that, but that's kind of where I am with Canto Bight, even though I initially was like, I don't understand why, like I want to get back to Rey and Kylo, like I don't know what this is all about. But now I really, really appreciate it for its uh tone and aesthetics. And as I said, its impact on Finn, the character.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. That makes a lot of sense. I do agree that costumes are fun. Let's see. Yeah, I guess what I was thinking when you were talking is I would love to see J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson remake the prequels. Like, I don't know how that would be. Like, remake them in a way that's more truthful acting and more
I
and
get that.
lit better, made more cinematic.
I think that
Like, because
George
I
Lucas
really
was
was
working
into
in
the
this.
story.
Yeah, George Lucas, I think he was going for this more, and I've heard him talk about this, like that considers those movies to be more like uh, uh adventure serial of the week, and maybe grounded acting wasn't his main focus. Now, no matter what he did, Ewan McGregor is still giving a fucking grounded performance because that guy is great.
Yeah, he's like,
Um,
I'm just gonna do my
I'm gonna do
thing."
my thing.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say about the technology in the prequels, and I know we're not supposed to be talking about the prequels. That's not what this episode is about, but I can't help but not. I think George Lucas. I want to say very clearly that he was pushing the boundaries of technology in those movies that now allow us to have movies like The Last Jedi or
Mhm.
all of the Marvel films or any
Mhm.
or even if you want to think about it, the volume, which is you know what I'm talking about, that big set, that virtual set that they shoot all the Mandalorian, and anyway, we could talk about that, but all of that technology is there because of the technology that George Lucas was and his team were pioneering in the prequels. Like he went like, let's do as much CG as possible. Now I think we do like a mix of practical and CG, and that seems to work really well. But in service of that, I think some of the other things like cinematic storytelling and maybe even some of the performance was or his ability to attend to the actors, I should say, was
And the
lacking.
dialogue. I think the dialogue could have been better.
Yeah, yeah. But also I think if you look at like I know I know we all revere the original trilogy because that's what we grew up with, but there's a lot of like hacky, cheesy
Yeah.
moments in that too.
Oh, yeah,
So
for sure.
like they both anyway, I just that is to say I understand now more about a little bit more about like how it's not black and white. Like people
Mhm.
love that. They want that story. They've also digested those characters through other things like the Clone Wars like cartoon, and there's all or animated series I should say. There's all kinds of stuff that really means something to them. And so those fans are part of the fandom as well and should have something that speaks to them. And this is, I think, the one movie of the sequel trilogy that truly bridges those two worlds, I think.
Mhm.
Um, all right. I Do you want to talk about Ray? We haven't hardly talked about Ray at all.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Ray.
What would do you have anything you'd like to start off with talking about Ray?
Um,
Because I think earlier in the discussion, you had said that, one of the things that was hard for you about the original trilogy was that you didn't feel like you really had enough. First of all, you didn't really have enough female characters to satisfy you in the original trilogy, which now we have, I think, a lot of female characters in this film. Holdo, Leia, Rose Tico, who we haven't
yeah.
even talked about yet, and, Ray. But also that you wanted like that hero character.
Yeah, I think she's, and it's like, this is a story about this trilogy is a story about her becoming a hero, and,
Mhm, mhm,
which is fine, but I also kind of wanted a story with a woman who was already, like,
mhm, mhm.
established and a teacher maybe, and
Well, we get
I
that a
don't know.
bit. We get that a bit from Leia, but I don't think we
Yeah,
ever really get it. Maybe we would have gotten it more if Carrie Fisher hadn't passed away suddenly.
yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah,
can see what you mean. Having a mentorship that was a real mentorship and not what we got, which was kind of like
yeah.
what
A
they
few
could.
scenes here and there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been good. I do think Leia's scenes in this movie are the best of the sequel trilogy for her.
Mhm,
Like I think some of her
mhm,
best work as Leia is in this movie, even
mhm,
across the original trilogy as well.
mm. Yeah, but I do like Rey. I do like Rey
Mhm.
more as a character than Leia. I'm talking about the old
Yeah.
Leia, like from
Mhm.
the
There's
original
no way I could compare
trilogy.
both my babies, so I'm not going to,
Yeah.
but I respect it.
Um, so in terms of like what I would have wanted as a kid,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's kind of like the heroic, the very
Mhm.
strong-willed,
Mhm.
and also Daisy is just like
Charming as
she's
fuck.
charming, she's sensitive,
She's sensitive, she's
she's
expressive.
yeah, she's very thoughtful, she's
Yes.
very caring.
Mhm.
She doesn't there's, like, not and I know this is weird to say, but there's doesn't appear to be a lot of maliciousness in her, even
No.
though there technically probably is maliciousness in her since she
Yep.
is we're not gonna go into that,
Mhm.
but, um
And despite all the character has been through, like, this is a character whose parents left her on a desert planet. She doesn't even remember their faces. She was left with this terrible, disgusting monster, uh, Unkar Plutt, and she spent her whole life barely getting enough to eat. Like, she should be jaded as fuck. And she's not. She is
she's so
open,
hopeful.
she's loving, she sees the best in people. She is the only one at this point who's willing to see the good in Ben Solo
Mhm,
and how the potential for his healing could resolve this conflict
mhm,
that they're all under. Or at
yeah,
least it could give them, and I don't want to say it like she's using him as a way to end the war. I think ultimately she sees another lonely person in him, and that
yeah,
she wants to give him that chance to break free of what is clearly a miserable existence for him.
because she wants that for herself.
Yes. Yeah.
She doesn't want someone to pigeonhole her into
Mhm.
any specific I
Mhm.
mean, we haven't gotten there yet because like, the 3rd film is all about her exploring her past and her
Yeah,
identity, and
yes. And also the expectations that are on her.
yeah,
But here we have Ray trying to figure out who she is and where she fits,
mhm,
which again, I think is a really great place for this character to be. Because in the first movie, she discovers, "Oh, there's more to me than just being a scavenger. Like, there's a lot
Mhm.
more to me." And she gets wrapped up in this epic, fight that really, she wasn't, much of a part of before. And now suddenly, she's got this big task. And of course, and I don't know that you really, we talked about this when we watched the movie. I don't know if you realize this, but this movie literally takes place concurrent with the events of The Force Awakens. There's no
Mhm.
time has passed at all,
Yeah.
really, other than maybe a day. I don't know. Rey literally leaves The Force Awakens handing Luke Skywalker the
Mhm.
lightsaber, and that
Yeah.
is where her story picks up in this movie. So
Mhm.
Kylo has just had his face slashed open. Finn is just waking up from, his injury. The resistance is just now escaping after almost being obliterated by Starkiller Base. All of this
Mhm.
stuff is happening concurrently. So Rey is really trying to discover, like, who am I? I've lived my whole life on Jakku. What do I do now? Like, who am I and what am I doing here? And she
Mhm.
needs someone to support her, and she goes looking for it in Luke Skywalker, and she doesn't get that. That's not
Mhm.
what she gets.
Yeah. Well,
When
Luke has,
she
like, PTSD from his,
Yes.
like, mentorship.
Yes, he is like, I no mentees for me, no thanks. And we'll talk about Luke in a second. But so there's that, but also she is the Force bond. What a brilliant development, and also something I think that fits really well with the Force and is really fascinating to me.
Mhm. Who do you
Um,
think, came up with
it was
that?
Ryan. It was Ryan
It was Ryan?
Johnson.
Okay.
Ryan said he said that what he looked at what happened he looked at the Force Awakens and said to himself, "What is the most interesting thing about these characters? What would be the hardest for them to overcome?" And to him, he was like, "I want to see Kylo and Rey have to talk to each other, like being forced to talk to each other and
Mhm.
to see each other as more than the idea that they have of each other." And so
Mhm.
for Kylo to see Rey as somebody who is for both of them, I think to see each other as more like each other than they expected, and for Rey to see past the horrible thing, honestly, that Kylo has done in the first movie, which is to kill his own father. For her to see
Mhm.
past that, when all she's ever wanted was for parents to love her. Like, she
Mhm.
thinks it's that simple. You have a dad. Your dad was around, and you killed him. What is wrong with you? Like, why would you do
Mhm.
that? And for him, it's like not that simple. And
Mhm.
I want to talk for a second about the scene where she asks him, "Why did you kill your father?" Because it took me a really several tries to really understand what he was saying. Like, at first I was like, "I don't understand." Like, she's like, "I don't know. Why did you kill your father? Why?" Because he doesn't say, again, this movie is about subtlety. He doesn't say, "I killed my father because I felt like he didn't love me," or "I killed my father because I was told to kill my father and it was the only way that I could progress in my dark sidedness," or "I killed my father because he had the last slice of pizza." He doesn't say any of that
Yeah.
stuff. What he says is, uh he turns it on her and says, "You're always looking for your parents and everyone you meet. You're looking for them and everyone you meet, and it's your weakness."
Mhm.
And to me, that's saying, I was looking for love from my parents and everyone. And if I kill the past,
I
then
won't
I'm
be looking
free.
for them.
I won't be looking for
Hmm.
them anymore because I'll be free.
Well,
So
that doesn't work,
it doesn't
Kylo.
work at all.
Sorry.
It does not work at all. For him at all. And also I think it's also about the legacy. Like, Ben Solo is, if nothing but, a legacy to many people. He is his mother and his father. He's the whole Skywalker line. His name, Ben, isn't even his own name. Like, that's the name of some legacy, Jedi from the past who he never even met. And so he never gets to be his own person. He's always expected to be something. And so to sever himself from that, probably, especially, and I really want to get into, because I know I told you I was going to talk about the rise of Kylo Ren a bit, when we talked about Last, because we didn't talk about that when we talked about the Force Awakens, right?
The Rise of
It's a
Kylo
comic
Ren?
book that
Okay.
explains what happened the night the temple was destroyed.
Okay.
So I want to get into that, but to be manipulated by the dark side through Snoke as well, to make you believe that if you sever those family ties, you'll be free. Um, anyway, so I don't know. I just think that but the Force, so to get back to the Force bond, Ryan wanted them to have a conversation, and the only way for them to do that without killing each other was to create this idea of the Force bond.
It's a very ingenious idea.
And I think that one of the things that works about the next movie is the idea that they're a dyad, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But I think that really is a fascinating idea of two halves of a whole, that I would like. I hope that eventually they get back to exploring a little bit more deeply. Um, so should we talk a bit about the rise of Kylo Ren since we're talking
Sure.
about that stuff? So in this movie, we're presented with the idea that the reason that Ben turned to the dark side, or he never becomes a Sith, by the way. He never
Mhm.
goes full Sith, because we know that when somebody does that, they get the yellow eyes and whatnot. So he
Yeah.
never goes fully that way. He's always in between. Um, so the rise of Kylo Ren is a story about what happened the night that the temple is destroyed and what happens
Yeah.
immediately after. It also goes a little bit back in time to when Ben was probably around 10 or 11 and is with Luke on a mission. So, in this film, we get sort of a Rashomon style storytelling where we have Luke saying what happened, where he's like, "I went to see my nephew Ben, and I looked inside of his head, and it was so dark in there that I almost decided to almost kill him," which is
Yeah.
fucked up.
Mhm.
Like turns his lightsaber on him when he's asleep,
Mhm.
which I think is one of the things that really pissed off the original trilogy fans, the idea that Luke
Mhm.
Skywalker would do such a thing. But I'm going to get into why that's so brilliant as well. Um, so he says that happened, and then Ben collapses the roof on him and then murders some students and leaves, which is not what happens at all. And yet that's what he tells Ray. Like, he straight up lies about that. Um, Ben says his uncle tried to kill him and then he escaped, left. That is what he says. But the real
Mhm.
story is something a little bit more nuanced, which is that Luke was afraid that there was darkness in him, and for a moment he wanted to do something about it, but then regretted it.
Mhm.
But by then it was too late.
Mhm.
So here's what happens in the
But
comic.
what did Oh, yeah, you're about to tell me. Okay. Yes.
Right after that happens, all of that is still the same. So Luke almost murders his nephew, and then the hut collapses.
Okay, does he kill anyone?
Here's what happens. He as he's very, very upset. Also, I need to go back a little bit further. So in one of the issues, the second issue is about Ben when he's 10 years old and he's with Luke on a mission. We find out in that issue that Snoke has been talking to Ben since he was a kid. So Snoke has been in his head his almost basically his whole life, telling him things, asking him what Luke's doing, acting like a friend, almost like an imaginary friend that's there for you even when your family's
Creepy.
not. So he's been
Creepy.
grooming him. I think that's fair to say, the word grooming. Grooming
Mhm.
him since he was a child, like twisting things about his parents and his uncle to him to sort of, lead him into a place where he feels like his family doesn't love him and that he's not lovable and that they only see him as a monster. And
It's
so,
horrible to do
yeah,
to a kid.
right. So by the time we get to the night of the temple, he's basically looking at what's happened, and it's almost like, of course this is what would happen. Of course this is where this would lead. But he's very upset. And a storm begins to gather around the Jedi temple. And then a bolt of lightning from the sky strikes the temple, setting it on fire and burning it down. Now, it's ambiguous as to whether, and we see Yoda use lightning in this film, which I think the third movie tries to indicate to us that the Force lightning is only a dark sider power, but we
Mhm.
see Yoda use it in this movie, so that doesn't really track. But I think one could, if you go with the story, which is canon, that Palpatine was behind everything. I mean, Palpatine could have used the lightning to destroy the temple, putting in the final piece in place where
Or
Ben now feels
Snoke?
Snoke is working through Palpatine. And in fact, in the
Was
Rise of
Palpatine
Kylo
still
Ren,
alive at that point?
yes, in the last Rise of Kylo Ren comic, he reaches out to Ben but Ben doesn't really know who he's talking to. So
Mm.
Ben's had people in his head his whole life talking to him and manipulating him basically.
Do you know why they're so interested in him? I guess because of his parents.
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you why this is a brilliant plan. If you want to destroy this, like the reason that Palpatine fails is because of the bond between Luke, Leia, and Han Solo. That is the reason. This group and their friends and their friendship and their love for each other, and their belief that they're doing the right thing is what brings Palpatine down, right? And
Mhm,
ultimately, the love of Anakin Skywalker for his son Luke is what brings Palpatine down. So, what better way to ruin that than to use their own child to drive a wedge between all of them, which is exactly what happens. Ben
mhm,
Solo, goes to Snoke. He goes on to the other side. And in that happening, Luke also does something that makes him feel like he can never be forgiven. So he leaves. This begins to drive a wedge between Han and Leia, who are now estranged as well. And so, although the resistance continues, the major players in it are now separated and estranged. Also, the power that probably Ben would have had as a light side force user would have been, especially when you take Ben and Ray together. Like if they had found Ray, which I honestly believe if Ben had not gone to Snoke, I think that they would have found each other anyway. To have the two of them together against Palpatine, he would have been toast. There's no way.
mhm,
Anyway, so it's ambiguous in the comic whether Ben his turbulent emotions caused the lightning, but either way he didn't do it on purpose. And he tries to run to the temple to save people, but then the temple blows up and he gets thrown off. But then he decides to escape because now he feels like everyone's going to blame him, which they do. And in the process of doing that, he considers going back to his mother, but then decides to go to Snoke instead. A couple of students chase him, believing that he is the one who caused the temple fire. One of them is a good friend of his and is trying to encourage him to come back to the light. And then ultimately, in battling with them, he ends up joining this group called the Knights of Ren, and uh, and his all of the Jedi that followed him are killed. So that's what happens in the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. And then at the end of the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, as Ben is turning to the dark side, have we talked about this before? How a
no.
lightsaber becomes red?
Oh. Oh, it's the force particles. What
Hmm.
are they called again?
It's no, it's not the midichlorians.
Midichlorians?
It's called bleeding the kyber crystal. So the crystal, the Force user imbues the kyber crystal with all of their pain and then it causes the kyber crystal to turn red as though it's also in pain. And so that is what causes a lightsaber to become red, and that's what he does at the end. He pours all of his pain into the kyber crystal. Oh no, sorry, before that. I meant to go back before. The moment that Ben sort of turns dark or whatever, where he actually kills the leader of the Knights of Ren. That's how he becomes the leader of the Knights of Ren. The moment that he does that, you see a scene of Rey on Jakku as a little girl, and she turns to Unkar Plutt and says, "Did you feel that? I just felt it feels cold." So like they were connected
Mhm.
even that early.
You know what's great about Star Wars is that there are so many storytellers
I
besides George
know.
Lucas. Like, George
Yes.
Lucas came
Mhm.
up with the idea, but there
Mhm.
are so many people who have
Mhm.
added to the
Mhm.
story and added these little
Mhm.
touches that
Mhm.
just make it so much more rich and,
Yes. Absolutely.
um, so that's cool. I mean, what other stories are like that? Like,
I guess
every
Marvel.
other but are there m I mean,
Yeah, there are multiple storytellers. Different people are writing the comics, different people
that's
are writing the
true.
movies. I think that most people agree that it would be good for there to be some kind of I think they're trying to do this with the High Republic, which is a story that takes place hundreds of years before the prequels, where they're really trying to make a cohesive idea about the narrative arc for that time period. I think
Mhm.
that could have. I think that when they jumped into the sequel trilogy, they didn't really have a clear plan for where it was going to go, and so you
Mhm.
have things like story points being made in this film, but then kind of
Mhm.
walked back in the film after it, and that's unfortunate because
Yeah.
we got a yes and there
Yeah.
was some not there were some yes there were some yes knowings going on
Yeah.
in the third movie that
Mhm.
I think really hurt the story, but I hope that they'll go back and fix that. I don't know how that'll work out.
Yeah, I honestly forget why J.J. Abrams didn't do all 3 or why Ryan Johnson didn't do all 3 or, like,
Ryan
what the deal was
Johnson
that?
was offered the ninth movie, but wanted more time to write the script, and the studio wanted it faster, so they went back to JJ. And JJ didn't want to do the third movie, I think, because he's like, I really like
He's like, "I'm
starting
an
stories.
opener."
He's like, I like starting stories. I don't love ending them. It's not my forte. And I think that that's what happened. They did have somebody else writing the third movie. They didn't like his version, Colin Trevorrow. I read bits and pieces of what that script was. It was much worse. I'm so glad we didn't get that. But I don't hate The Rise of Skywalker. We'll get to that. I don't hate it at all. I know a lot of people do. I don't. There's things that I wish about it that were different. But we can get to that when we talk about The Rise of Skywalker. I also understand why people who deeply love these characters and had seen it going a different way do hate this The Rise of Skywalker. I understand why. I don't hate it, but we'll get into that. Um, oof. I want to talk really briefly about Luke because I think this is a point of contention for people from the original trilogy who love the original trilogy. Luke Skywalker's story in this film was very unexpected for me, but a huge gift, I think, to the character and to the actor.
Mhm.
Because it would be easy to have Luke Skywalker be, this kindly old hero, but that's not dramatically interesting.
No.
So to have Luke be sort of a washed up has been who's made a terrible mistake and needs to redeem
Is
himself,
ashamed.
that is fucking
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
And to redeem himself through being brought into the fold by a young person who's very much like him, on a desert planet, no family, seeking guidance. Like, she's the one who kind of brings him back in and shows him that he can still have hope. And so and then for him to use, and I think other people were upset, well, I want to have a big confrontation between Luke and Kylo Ren at the end. The way it went down was perfect. Luke showed that through the pacifism of the Jedi, that you can still be a hero. But him going up against his nephew and killing him, or going up against his nephew and being killed, that wouldn't have solved anything. That wouldn't have helped anyone. But to go up against his nephew and give him the chance to confront him with no consequences, really,
Mhm.
other than to distract him from the resistance, it
Mhm.
gives him the chance to confront each other without then also putting another person's life on his soul. Because
Mhm.
he would have
Yeah.
killed Luke.
Yeah. Oh,
And
you mean he would have killed Luke,
I
or
think he
Luke would
would
have killed
have.
him?
Well,
Do
either
you think that?
way, it wouldn't have I don't think it would have helped anybody.
Yeah. Well, I guess we definitely know that he would have killed Luke because his very first action was to shoot all the guns at him.
Yes. Oh god, that scene is amazing. I love the way Adam plays that scene. I know we haven't talked about a lot about Adam specifically. I think it's because Ben Solo as a character is just so like embedded in my mind as a person
Yeah.
that exists. But Adam's performance in that scene where he is just unhinged, and not in a
Mhm.
way that is angry. It's like unhinged trauma. That's what it
Mhm.
feels like to me as trauma. Like, I
Yeah.
see how he wants to fire every gun at this man who he blames for ruining his life. You
Yeah.
ruined my life. Because of you, here I am on this side being miserable. And I think the movie
Mhm.
does an excellent job of showing just how fucking miserable he is.
Mhm.
Like, every time we see him right before a Force bond, he's alone, staring
Mhm.
forlornly at some kind of, like, machine or something that's being built for the First Order, and he's a lonely, miserable person.
He needs some SSRIs and therapy.
He does. He needs a hug. He
He
needs a
does.
hug.
I'm here to give it to him.
Me too. Let me snuggle up in those pecs, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, he is miserable. He feels, I think, betrayed and traumatized by what happened between him and Luke, and all of that comes out. The way that he sinks into the chair and just like exhales after they've fired all those also the humor of
The
Hux.
humor of, like, being like, "I think you got
Yeah,
him." Like
I wanted so much more of that in the third movie. I wanted Hux, the way Hux almost shoots Kylo when he's laying dead, like prone on the floor, like he is passed out, and Hux is like, "Well, I could just shoot him right now, and I could be the leader of the First Order." You know, that's brilliant. More of that. I wish we'd
Mhm.
gotten more of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I love Adam's performance of this. Like I think he really feels it's not just anger and hate and rage, it's trauma. And he's
Mhm.
carrying this trauma. And I think we really see that very deeply. God, we've got so much more to cover, but I feel like we need to find some way to get towards the end. So I do really want to talk about the throne room.
Okay.
I feel like we have to talk about that because it's one of my favorite scenes in any Star Wars movie.
Mhm.
And the elevator. God, the elevator scene. Okay, I'll just say that the elevator scene is so beautiful and moving and hot to me when they're riding up in the elevator and she's telling him, Ben, I can help you. Please, let me help you. Like, God, it's like I wasn't expecting that at all. And I remember the first time I was watching this movie thinking, where is this going to go? Like, there's no way he's just going to betray everything that he's decided he believes in all of a sudden. So
Mhm.
when he God. Okay, first of all, I don't know about you, but the set design of the throne room is incredible to me. It's so
Mhm.
gorgeous. The reds and the glass floor and like all of it is just so amazing. Um
Yeah,
the
actually, all of that like, just, like, a red curtain
Mhm.
and glass floor, and, like,
Mhm.
that was one of the trivia things.
Oh,
I wasn't gonna read
yeah.
that one because that one isn't as interesting, but, yeah, like, that was not s there was no
Mhm.
CCGI or green
Mhm.
screen or anything. That was all, like,
The
a room with,
simplicity of
like,
it
yeah.
is so brilliant. It's like a dungeon in hell. It's like
Mhm.
living in hell. He's like in the bowels of hell every time he goes in there.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't even know how to parse out my feelings about this throne room scene. I really don't. So I guess I'll just try to reflect on how I was feeling in the moment when I saw it in the theater. Maybe that's the best way to go with this. I never expected them to kill Snoke in this movie. Did not expect it. Didn't see it coming. When Snoke is telling him to kill Rey with his own lightsaber, was sitting there thinking, I have no idea how they're going to get out of this. I never believed for a second that he was going to kill her. I was like, they're
Mhm.
too close now for this to go that way. But how is he going to try to convince her to join him? Like, what's going to go on? And then when he starts turning that close up of the hand turning
Mhm.
and the lightsaber kind of twitching, I was like, oh fuck. Oh
Mhm.
fuck. And then the lightsaber just like severing Snoke, and then the close up shot of the fingers, just the
Fingers.
finger curl as the lightsaber slices through Snoke and then goes into her hand. I don't
Yeah.
think there's that is one of the top, maybe one of the top moments for me in all of Star Wars history.
Yeah, that was a
Seriously,
great room moment.
exhilarating. And then the way
Yeah.
that they look at each other just as they're about to fight back to back.
And they look at each other, and then they go, "Boom," and they, like, turn and, like, yeah, they did slow motion at that
Yes,
moment, I think.
yes, yes.
Like, "Here we
Um
go."
the Also, I know we talked about Rey as being this really positive character, but I also love that as a hero, she is like the screaming, the like the way that like she is not there. She's not dainty about her like
No.
lightsaber fight. She is like an animal who is
Mhm.
pouncing, and I love
Yes.
it so much, but there's also a lot of that in him too. And so there's this a lot of mirroring, I think, of the grunting and the screaming, and I'm just like, yes, I want a female hero who screams when she swings her lightsaber. I want that. That's what I want in a hero from a
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really I don't think words could describe how much I love the throne room or the lightsaber fight in the throne room. It is my favorite lightsaber. It's hard for me to choose between that and the Force Awakens, but the throne room might be my favorite lightsaber fight of all time. And I know people have gone and tried to pick apart the air choreography, and fuck those people. Emotionally, this scene is so satisfying because it's the culmination of these two characters coming together, and for a
Yeah.
second, you're like, "That's it. He's gonna turn. This is it. He is gonna they're gonna walk off together on
Mhm.
the same side." But that's not what
That
happens at all.
no.
And that is
No.
also an amazing narrative twist because you can at this point in the story. We got to get through the third movie. We can't have them come together just yet. But it's so heartbreaking that they don't.
Yeah, I know. And she totally bet bests him too, like, he
She
wakes up
does.
and she's gone and everyone is dead, like,
Oh
it's
yeah. No, she
like
gets him good. I did want to say really quickly of the proposal at the end of that scene where he's like, "Join me." What did you see that as a romantic proposal or as a strategic proposal?
strategic for sure.
I did
Um,
too at the time, but I now realize it as a marriage
it was probably
proposal. It is
probably was both.
a
Well, it
marriage
was
proposal.
probably strategic and like, he was probably
Mhm,
thinking
mhm,
romantically and
mhm, mhm.
strategically, and he probably wasn't, like, explicitly saying, like, "I want to be in a relationship
Mhm.
with you." It was more like, let's work to get
Let's
together
get a
on
cup of
ruling."
coffee at the cafeteria, on the 3rd floor and see how it goes. No, it's a marriage proposal. It totally is. I see that now. Like his hand outstretched and that like I think in the top probably in the top 5 moments of Adam Driver performances of all time, that please, that sad, tortured please.
Yeah,
There's so much wrapped up in that one word.
yeah.
And let me tell you a little something about what Ryan Johnson said in an interview about that scene. He, this whole relationship, in case you're wondering, was always meant to be romantic for him. He knew that that's where this was going as a
Did
filmmaker.
JJ Abrams believe that as well?
I don't know. I mean, he kind of
You
had to
don't
take
know?
it with him in the next movie, but I'm not sure if that was something he meant. JJ did. But Ryan Johnson always saw this as a romantic pairing. And he compared the proposal in this scene where he's saying, "Join me." He compared it to Pride and Prejudice when the proposal scene in Pride and Prejudice, where the which is a I haven't read, but I've seen a lot of people screenshot on Twitter the film. But the character of Darcy, who is this like hardened kind of grumpy person who is trying to propose his love for or propose to a woman that he loves, but he's saying all the wrong things.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what happens here. It's like he says everything he's trying to say, which is you may not have your parents may not be have this legacy that my parents have. And the universe may not see you as anything but a scavenger, but I see you and I want you. Like that's what he's saying, but he says it in the way that makes her feel like shit.
Yeah.
And that's part of I think what causes her to not consider his offer. Like to her she's like, "Well, I
Mhm.
can't." She's like, "I'm not going to stay here with you and become part of this machine. I want you." She's like, "I want you." And he thinks he's giving her what she wants and being open about his feelings when really he's what everything he's saying is making her feel
Yeah, no,
upset.
I would not have responded well to that.
But I think it's brilliant because of course somebody who doesn't who has been cut off from any kind of loving relationship for years probably. Of course he wouldn't know. Also, it's not like Ben Solo probably had a ton of girlfriends. You know what I'm saying? In Jedi school. In fact, a
No.
sidebar, Adam Driver did ask Ryan Johnson during as he was trying to figure out his character and what was going on in this movie, he's like, "Well, did Ben ever have a girlfriend? Like, has he ever kissed anyone?"
Has he ever had sex?
Yeah, and Ryan's response was, "I think he probably kissed somebody in his Jedi temple days playing spin the lightsaber." That's what he told him,
Oh my
which
god.
I think is the cutest thing I've ever heard.
Spinning the lightsaber.
But suffice to say, he's pretty inexperienced, so
Yeah.
he probably wouldn't know how to propose properly.
Oh,
Also I want to I think about the hand scene where they touch in the hut, and I know, guys, we haven't covered hardly anything in this movie, but there's just so much to talk about. I feel like I could talk for days, and we just can't. But I always think when he takes his glove off right before he touches her, when was the last time he touched anyone with his bare hands? That's what I think about. How long has
I
it
don't
been
know.
since he
Yeah.
touched anyone or had anyone touch him, you know?
Yeah.
That loneliness, that
Did they
deep
actually
loneliness.
touch? I
Yes,
forget.
they
Did
touch hands,
actually
they touch
okay.
fingers. In fact, I think Ryan Johnson said that scene is the closest scene you'll ever get to
Sex
having a
scene?
sex scene in a Star Wars movie. Did you already get that trivia? Is that already on your list?
No, 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 no.
Um, okay. I want to keep talking about this, but I can't because there's just we could go on for days
It's
and days.
yeah. Yeah.
I also really love the scene between Luke and Yoda. I don't want to get into it
Yeah.
because we can't, but I want to say that I think that's an example of really of nostalgia being used well, nostalgia being
Yeah.
used in a way to make the story move forward, and not just as a thing to make us feel good as in our I remember this thing and I like this thing. That's a really beautiful scene as well. Um, all right. Anything else to say about The Last Jedi? Um,
I liked it the first time I saw it. I
mhm,
still like it. I have no problems with any of these sequels.
mhm.
Yeah, I just think they're solid films.
Yeah.
Like, I think that I really love
Mhm.
the Force Bond part of
Mhm.
it the most,
Yeah.
just because I love relationship type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The relationships in this movie are really
Yeah,
strong between all the characters, like Poe, again, learning to become a leader. Finn, we didn't really talk about
and
Rose, which I feel like is
Rose.
a huge
Yeah,
crime. I absolutely love Rose Tico. I wanted more of her in the third movie. I hope that we get that one day.
yeah,
Um, I Rose, I think, gives Finn an opportunity to see someone whose life has been, ruined by the First Order, like his has, but she
mhm,
chooses hope.
mhm,
And I think that's part of what allows Finn to make the choice to say, I am going to really commit to this. And I'm
yeah.
sure you guys can hear the leaf blower outside. I apologize. We're just going to live with it. Apparently somebody is leaf blowing right next to my garage, which is where I record, and I apologize if you guys are hearing that. Um I I guess I'll forego talking about where I'd like to see the story go in the future until the Rise of Skywalker. But suffice to say, again, I know that there are times in this fandom as a whole, Star Wars fandom, where a certain thing is rejected. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. And there's a lot of vitriol about the sequel trilogy, which is crazy to me because I feel like these movies are incredible. They look
They're
gorgeous. The
great.
writing is excellent for the most
Acting
part.
is excellent. Yes,
The
everything
acting
is,
is
like,
incredible.
excellent.
The effects are amazing. It's top notch. Star Wars. I really think it's the
It's,
culmination.
like, the best that they could have done.
Yeah. And maybe here's my prediction. I feel like in 10 years, this sequel trilogy will be revered by in the same way. And I think it is revered amongst a large group of the fans, but I feel like rather than have a debate as to whether The Last Jedi is one of the best Star Wars movies ever made, I don't think it's going to be a debate. I think this movie is one of the best Star Wars movies ever made. To me, it's right up there with Empire Strikes Back. And I think it's quite unquestionably a movie that's going to hold up over time. And in 10 years, I think we'll be seeing the kind of, I should say this, we should be seeing the kind of nostalgia for this trilogy that we saw for the original trilogy and then subsequently the prequel trilogy, which I don't know if you know this, but in the coming year, we've got an Obi-Wan Kenobi show coming out with both Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen playing Darth Vader. Yes, coming out in next year. We have an Ahsoka series, which Ahsoka is a character from the Clone Wars, with characters from that world coming out. Uh, uh, so we're getting a lot of this stuff, from the prequel trilogy is continuing in a form of a TV show. And I hope what we'll get is more. I want to know what happens with Finn, what happens with Rey, what happens with Rose, what happens with Ben, what happens with Poe, all of that. I hope we'll get that because in some ways the sequel trilogy feels like a bridge to me between the original trilogy and the new characters. It is also about telling it's about wrapping up the story of the original trilogy, and I'd like to see the sequel trilogy characters stand on their own as a story. And
Yeah.
we didn't ever get a chance to have that because we were still wrapping up these other storylines. So I hope that we'll get maybe a Disney Plus show or some more movies. Ryan Johnson still has a trilogy that on the books for Disney, for Star Wars. We don't know when or what it's going to be, but supposedly that I would love to see him take these characters on again. That's what I want. And I think I'm not the only one who thinks this. Of course, basically everyone who loves Ben and Ray wants to see Ryan Johnson take these characters on, and I want to see Ben and Ray reunited. That's what I want. But we'll talk. I guess we can talk more about that when we get to Rise of Skywalker. But I also want to see more Rose Tico. I thought she was great. I want to see her stand on her own as a story. I feel like in some ways her story is a complement to Finn's story, and then we don't get much of her in the third movie. So I'd like to see a Rose Tico, like her journey. I want to see that a little bit more. Anyway, I love this movie deeply. I might watch it again tonight just for the fuck of it. Um, uh, okay, shall we get into our moments of thirst?
Sure.
I It was really hard for me to not just write an entire page of moments of thirst because this whole movie is so fucking thirsty. Sarah, would you like to go first?
Sure. I didn't write these down, but
Mhm.
I can picture them.
Yes,
So,
I can picture them
um,
very clearly.
the like basically like every shot of him,
Every shot, literally every
like
shot,
literally every shot.
every shot, all of them.
Um, so the first instance of him taking off his mask,
Mhm. God,
him
that close up.
in shirtless looking at
Oh,
Ray,
in the
I guess
Force
across
Bond
the divide, the Force
when he's
bond.
all like oiled up,
Yeah,
looking shiny and plump.
him doing his saber like thing
Oh,
or
where he's pointing it at
thing with
people? Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, his aggressive
the thing with
lightsabering.
Luke.
Yes.
You know, with Luke where he just, like, kinda squats and, like, sticks it
Oh
out.
god, the thunderous squat. The
Yes.
thunderous lightsaber squat is like I that's a key Ben Solo move and I love it.
Yes. Yes. So I think
Um
those are the top ones that
oof.
I'm thinking of.
Those are great. I think I got a little bit more specific here. Number 1, I have pouting. The lips. I feel like Adam Driver's lips are really like on display in this movie in a way that not every movie they like his I don't know what they were doing to his lips.
The lenses were
The
lips oriented.
They were
They were
lips
lips
lenses.
lenses.
Yes. And his lips look so plush and just like plump in this movie. And he's pouting the whole time. And I'm just like, yes, give me more of this. Um, the rage and petulance that he displays in this movie, I don't know. Found it hot. Can't explain it, but I do. Um, God. Oh, the piloting. We didn't you I know I thought this would be on your list. When
Oh,
he's
yeah.
piloting the ship in the early part of the movie and he just looks so focused.
So focused.
Oh my god,
Um,
so hot.
something that, like, I discussed with my partner is,
Yeah.
like, attention is sexy.
Attention is
Like,
sexy.
it's
Focus and
sexy.
attention is super sexy. And he's like so focused on when he's piloting in that scene.
Yeah.
The elevator scene is super hot. It's so fraught with emotion. His again, the anguish. He's like, I want to cuddle him and fix him, Sarah. I want to cuddle him and fix him. And
Mhm. You
I
can't do it, Nicole,
I
you
but
can't.
I
He's dead.
could. He don't say it. Don't even say. I know. Did we see a force ghost, Sarah? Did we see a force ghost? We didn't.
No.
So I still have hope, and I'm gonna hold on to that hope. I mean, I know he technically disappeared and all of that, but that doesn't mean we can't bring him back. I'll get into the war. We'll talk about World Between Worlds in the next when we talk about Rise of Skywalker. I'll talk all about World Between Worlds because I think they could bring Ben Solo back quite believably. We'll get into it. Ben Solo's a huge dork, and you know I'm horny for dorks. The way he like academically wants to analyze what's going on with the Force bond, the way that Rey is just like, I'm gonna like her first thought is I'm gonna shoot you, and his
Mhm.
first thought is, what's happening here? Like, can you see me? Like, what's going
Yeah.
on? Like
Yeah.
his academic interest in what's going on is so dorky, and
Yeah.
I am so here for it. The throne room scene is like fucking porn to me. I could just
Mhm.
watch that on repeat endlessly forever, the whole scene. His fingers,
Funny.
the curling fingers, Sarah, the close up of the fingers. I'm not saying anything original. Raylos throughout time and space have made gifs of those fingers and just shared them as a pick me up. And,
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
uh,
Also the hand, I didn't mention this, but when he touches her
when
hand,
he
when he takes off
touches
the
her hand,
glove,
yes.
also his hand is so big
It's
compared to
so
hers.
huge. His monster paw, I just I could go on and on. I wanted to say something about the oily shirtless scene for a second because again, like I know everybody points to that as like a and you'd think that would be like on my list as one of the hottest things in this movie, but I think compared to the eyes and the pouting and and his hair just like askew, I didn't even get to the hair. His hair looks amazing in this movie. Um, I feel like the scene where he has got no shirt on is almost comedic to me. Like the way that he turns around and has these like it's like a play on a play to me on the hot bad boy and
Mhm.
there's and the fact that Ray is just like so uncomfortable.
She's like, "Could you put something on, please?"
Yeah. And I don't think she's just uncomfortable with his nudity, but I think she's uncomfortable with seeing him so vulnerable. Like he's so vulnerable
Yeah.
and
And
and she's uncomfortable maybe with the feelings that she's having for him in that
mhm.
moment. And to me
That's
that
what I thought. The first time I
yeah,
saw it, I was like, "Oh, she's attracted
yes.
to him."
Yes. And so that for that reason, that scene to me plays more for humor in that moment than than for hotness, which I know
Yeah.
that a lot of people don't read it that way, but to me I was like it's funny to me how she's just like can't she's just befuddled. Can't deal
Yeah.
with the hotness of her enemy in this
Yeah.
moment. Um
Yeah. I also like now that I'm thinking about it, I love that they didn't do the opposite where they caught her at a
mhm.
moment when she was
Yes,
undressed.
give us more of
Like,
that. Give me hot, half-dressed villains. Give me more. I deserve it. I've earned it as a woman in society. I have earned
mhm.
it.
As you would imagine, I'm normally up for pretty much anything in the bedroom,
Mhm.
but I can't tell if what happened was weird or sexy.
Are you ready for Adam and Andy
Yes.
trivia?
Yes, are you?
I am ready.
Alright.
Bring it on. Give me the trivia. I want
I'm
it.
just gonna read some stuff
Mm.
because this is from a list,
I love
and
it. I love it.
figured. Okay. Johnson says Ryan Johnson
Mhm.
says when he got the job, he was really excited to work with Adam Driver
Yeah.
specifically, and only became more excited once he
Mhm.
saw the Awakens. So he
Yes.
knew about this job before
Yes.
that
Yes.
came out, I think.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He met with a bunch of people. He met with Dave Filoni, who was kind of the he's been the driving force behind the Clone Wars series. He met with JJ. Like he talked. Like I think he actually told JJ. I'm sorry if this is in your trivia. I feel like I'm now spouting trivia. I apologize if
It's
I'm taking
okay.
this from you. But the one thing that Ryan asked for at the end of the Force Awakens, because JJ was going to have BB-8 on the island with Rey at the
Mm.
end when she's giving Luke the lightsaber, and Ryan was like the one thing he asked was like instead of BB-8, can you have R2D2 be there because he wanted Luke and R2D2 to reunite, and he wanted to have that scene where R2D2 plays back Leia's message. Anyway,
Nice. Sweet. Johnson
hmm
smashed the Kylo Ren helmet himself.
ooh,
The
really?
initial take just had it split in half, but he
hmm
wanted to do another take with it smashed to bits, so
hmm
Johnson took his foot to it.
Nice. I really feel
Um,
like there's an entire person on employed by the First Order who just has to fix things that Kylo breaks when he's angry. Like, there's one technician that's their entire job. I wanna see their story. What's going on with that person? They get a call, they're like, "Okay, the elevator's broken. Alright, I'll be right there."
so I find this interesting.
Mm,
The original written line was not as concise
mhm.
as "It's time for the Jedi to end."
Yes.
Johnson says when they cut
Mhm,
the trailer guys who
mhm, mhm,
cut it down to this line.
mhm.
And so Johnson went back and readjusted it after he saw how much better that line
I
was.
love it. I love it. I'd like
Isn't
to know
that
what
cool
the
that,
ori
like,
Yes.
e e e e e editors were like, "This is a better
Like
line." Like,
Well, because the trailer is gonna try to make it as concise as possible.
yeah,
I love that, and I love that Ryan is able to see something like that and go, "Oh, that's brilliant. Let me go back and change it." Like,
yeah.
that's I think that's artistry to really see, like, how other people can change your view of your story, and after how many times they've probably watched it and been in the editing room, he's like, "Oh, thank you for this gift. And it is a great line. It's very powerful. And we didn't really get to this, but I was hoping after this movie, I was really hoping, and I'm hoping we can still get a story like this. I'd love to see more non Jedi Force users or Sith. Like, where are the in between? Like I
Mhm.
think Rey and Ben could have progressed to the sort of gray area where they're using light and dark. And
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of, I've read a lot of fics where where this is a part of the story, and it's really interesting. And I think somewhere that they could take the Force in a new direction. And I feel like more attuned to our current belief about humanity, that humanity isn't all good or all bad.
Mhm.
It's not black and white, it's gray. And I want to see more gray, people that aren't necessarily Jedi, aren't necessarily Sith, but are walking between. And we didn't get
Yeah.
that in The Rise of Skywalker, unfortunately, but maybe one day we
Yeah.
will.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The best advice Johnson got from J.J. Abrams editors.
Hmm.
Well, the best advice he got from anyone were from
Hmm.
J.J. Abrams editors who told him for every scene, shoot a cutaway of BB-8,
Yes.
and he'll
Yes.
never regret it. And
Yes.
he says that they were right.
It's so true. And there's so many great BB-8 reaction shots in this movie. It's
Mhm.
almost like BB-8 is almost like when you're in a movie and there's a dog and they're like, cut to the dog for a good cutaway of that cute dog face. Like, that's literally it. Like, BB-8's little head swiveling to look at things when he's
And his little
confused.
sounds.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Happy
Perfect.
beeps.
Happy beeps, buddy. Happy beeps. Ugh.
Mm.
Yes, that's perfect.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure there's
No,
nothing
that's
else super
amazing.
good. I think that's good.
That was great. I love it.
Just like more like behind the scenes facts,
Mhm,
I
mhm.
guess.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you've watched the behind the scenes documentary on The Last Jedi. You can watch it
Mm-mm.
on Disney Plus. You should, if you've got some time this weekend, you should check it out. It's really amazing. Oh, one thing we didn't talk about, and I didn't want to step on your toes in case it was in your trivia. Did you know that all of those Force Spawn scenes were filmed, like Adam and Daisy were together in all of those scenes? So Daisy and and Mark were off in some fucking remote island filming all the stuff on Octo, and they flew
Mm-hmm.
Adam out as well. So all of those scenes where she's having these force bonds with Kylo, he's actually there. And likewise, all of the scenes on the First Order ship where Kylo is having all of that stuff they filmed together. And I think you can really tell because like actors are great and they're great at acting, right? So we can imagine what it's like to connect with somebody, but I feel like to have your scene partner there so that you
Yeah.
can really connect. Also, I think I really noticed this time how like every time Daisy is looking at Adam in those Force Bond scenes, like how high she's looking up so high because he's obviously so tall and he was really there. And I think
Yeah.
that makes a difference to have the actors play off of each other and not because they could have just said, "Oh, it's too expensive. We can't fly. There's no reason to fly Adam out to this island. He's not in any of these scenes." But instead they were like, "No, he's got to be there. It's important that he's in these scenes with
Yeah,
her."
I mean, totally. I just take stuff like that for
Mhm.
granted. It's like as an actor, you need that, and
Mhm.
like,
You need that connection, that human
mhm,
connection to play off of the other actor, and I think that really made these scenes work.
mhm,
But you can see that in some of the behind the scenes footage, the sort of them in these scenes together connecting, even though they're physically distant in the movie.
yeah,
Oh, that
cool.
was great. I loved that. That was lovely trivia. I
Yes,
love it so
thank
much. Thank
you.
you. Thank you for always providing the great trivia bits.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you look awesome. Come the fuck upstairs.
Okay.
But wait, I have to warn you about something.
What?
If you come up here, I'm gonna tie you to my bed and keep you for at least 3 days. I'm just in that kind of mood.
Okay, so we're ready to talk about what we're going to watch next week.
Yes.
So there's no reason to spin the wheel. Sorry, guys. I might change that graphic since it's been a while since we've spun the wheel. But I think we all know what we're going to see next time, and it is House of
House of
Gucci. House of
Gucci.
Gucci is coming
Look at that
next.
face. Look at all their
I
faces.
know, God. I think this might be one of the most anticipated movies of the year for me.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, I cannot wait. So you and I are going to be seeing this. I might have to extract myself from Twitter for about a week until because we're not seeing this on Thanksgiving, obviously, because you're
Yeah.
going out of town. We're not going to be able to see it together. And we wanted to see it together. So we're going to wait until like, I think we're going on the December 2nd, right? or
Yeah.
1st, something like that. December
December
1st. We're
1st.
December 1st and then recording on the 2nd.
Yeah.
So, so I might have to extract myself from Twitter for a while to avoid spoilers, which is going to be hard because Twitter's like my happy place right now. But also, I feel like, should we tell our listeners a little bit about our special, the special thing that's happening with this?
Sure, yeah.
So, we, one of our friends, Fabre, is going to be guesting with us on the show. She sent me a text asking me when we were going to see the House of Gucci, and I was like, do you want to go see it with us? And she was like, absolutely. And then I was like, why don't you come? Why don't you be a guest on our episode? And so we've
Yeah.
never had a guest on the show, and this is going to be our first guest on the Adam and Andy podcast. So we're going to have a guest with us to talk about House of Gucci, and I can't wait. I think it's going to be a really good time. I'm not for once I'm going into an Adam movie. Not, I mean, obviously there's him being fucking murdered is going to be sad. I'm preparing myself for that. It's going to be really hard to see that character.
How many times has he been murdered in films? The last film we saw of his, he was murdered in that as well.
How many times has he not been murdered? I think is more the more important question. Well, I guess he survives Black Klansman. He survives Man Who Killed Don Quixote. I guess it's really just The Last Duel, and obviously the Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker, and this one, House of Gucci.
House of Gucci. And so aside from the murdery part, I feel like I'm not going into it being like dreading some heaviness. Although I loved The Last Duel was great and Annette was great. Great movies. I know you didn't like Annette, but I loved it. But I know that this feels a little bit more flashy and campy, and I think I'm ready for that. But I also know that I feel like I already have a soft spot in my heart for this character, Maurizio, and so I think that it's going to be sad when that happens in the film. And I know,
honestly, I'm more excited about Gaga. Like, I love Adam, and I'm really excited about that. But like, Gaga is just so like spectacular. Like, she's so like dramatic,
incredible. I can't wait. I can't wait for the two of them. I've actually really loved all of their bestie banter this whole like promo season. By the way, listeners, I'm not even going to try to hide this anymore. We recorded this episode in 2 parts, so I don't know if anybody of you noticed, but I got a new couch in the interim of this. And the reason I wanted to say this was because last night, of course, was Adam Driver's birthday, and yesterday, when we started this recording, it was like the day before his birthday. So Gaga posted 2 things, one on Instagram wishing him a happy birthday, and also saying shout out to all of Adam's fans because I know how much you love him. And I was like, oh my God, like Lady Gaga is like, she's like wishing him a happy birthday, but also like wishing his fans his happy birthday. And I was like, who does that? What a queen. She also posted basically what it amounts to a fan cam of Adam Driver on her TikTok wishing him a happy birthday. It was set to Star Wars music. And it was just different shots of him. And she was basically like, happy birthday. You're a weirdo just like me. And I was like, I love that. What a special friend. Like, I love the idea that they're friends. And like, there's the picture of them at the after party with Joanne. And I'm just like, oh my God, I just want them to all be besties forever. I love it when weirdos find each other. I just love that so much. It's like you and me, we're weirdos who found each other. Okay, well, I guess that's it. We'll see you in the next episode. I'm wiping our hands of this. Don't think this is the last time I'm going to talk about The Last Jedi, but I'll try. So, listeners, next time you see us, we will be talking about House of Gucci. You can tell us what you think. Is there anything you feel like anything we missed or got wrong about The Last Jedi? Or if you want to just share, maybe if you want to share your favorite scene from The Last Jedi or your favorite moments of thirst, you can tweet at us at Adam Andy Pod, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Adam and Andy Podcast. Happy Adam Driver's birthday, Sarah.
Happy Adam Driver's birthday, Nicole. It's a very special day.
It really is.